Alrighty, we are live. Here we go. Alrighty, there we have it. How's it
Welcome,
going?
man, guys. Welcome to SmallmouthCrush Live. Another Monday night special. I'm back up in the cabin here at Cape Vincent, New York. Eric, where are you at?
Man, I'm down in the Outer Banks, man. I'm still in the Carolinas.
I tried to get a hold of you
two-day championship derby.
last 3 days, bro. You would not answer your phone.
I wanted to stay completely focused on trying to win a boat, man. Came up 7 places short, but still a top 10, cash the check. Got about not a whole day of practicing, but we found some fish in the river, and the water backed in the river. The wind picked up overnight and stalled the current in the Roanoke. I've never seen it. So the water backs in, fighting the push down from the dam, and there is zero current. I've never ever seen that river still. That river chucks harder than most rivers I've ever fished on. It's nothing compared to the Potomac or Upper Bay. The water absolutely moves and positions the fish. So we had a really good crankbait bite going day one. I was throwing some big M's, the custom ones that he made for me recently. The Fat Boy Slim was tearing them up. And literally, I got one fish to the scales in 2 days. We had to slow down and fish plastics for him, man. So we started out in 14th place after day one. Didn't lose any key fish. I mean, Scooter hung a fish in a brush pile. Might have mattered. Broke off. Just couldn't get him out. I mean, we played with that fish for 5 to 7 minutes. And then day two, I had a fish break me off on a barnacle on a saltwater barnacle, man. There's barnacles everywhere on these trees we were fishing. But, yeah, I mean, we climbed up to 8th place and cashed a check, but fell short. The day one leader with 21.91 day one. What do you think he caught day two? 21.91 day one.
2 fish.
12 pounds.
Oh,
he dropped to third, man. That's a heartbreaker, man. It's a $43,000 boat, man. So the stakes were high. Scooter's been rocking the big bull redfish, man. So he did not have much time to practice, but we got out there. He put us on a great program, man. But just the wind, it's all wind-driven tide down there. There's not a natural tide to this body of water. So you really have to play the wind. So we scrambled and still managed an 8th place finish. So pretty proud of it. But, it's not what we wanted.
Very good. Man, so we got a lot of stuff going on, Eric. Do you have any more
of
these?
You, man?
Do you got any more of these championships coming up, or are we done here?
No, I got one more, man. One more in 2 weeks. That's the Angler's Choice. That's Scooter's title sponsor.
You fish more championship tournaments than anyone I know.
Well, you qualify. So we qualify, man. You got to qualify throughout the season. So, you're fishing strong. You qualify for them all. Mm-hmm.
I hear you.
Yep.
Very good.
Yep, man. Yeah, man. That's for a boat, too. So, but no practice. We're going in with 0 practice on that one.
I gotcha.
Just going to show up and fish.
Nice. Well, listen, we got an awesome show tonight. Joe Balog will be joining us shortly. He was on the SmallmouthCrush podcast, one of the popular ones. I mean, I get a lot of feedback from all the podcasts, of course, but Joe's been around the industry for a very long time. He's developed a lot of the, I guess, tools, techniques that Great Lakes anglers use today. And so right up my alley, I could use a little help. I got a bad trolling motor, Eric, today.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I was on
again.
Yeah, I was on.
What happened? Is it the foot pedal or something else?
No, I was on pretty high speed, and hit a cluster of
Yep.
rocks dead on.
Oh.
So we twisted it a little bit. Still works. I'm
Whoa.
gonna get through tomorrow and the season. You know, I got some ratchet straps, but I can't lock it in place. Cannot lock it in place now. So every time you hit the power, the trolling motor goes comes out of the water. So I got a strap on it, and then I'll get through. It's just gonna be annoying. But that's what happens, man. I was chasing down a salmon today, dude. I decided to do a little salmon fishing today instead of smallmouth, and you know, you get all worked up over these fish. What's that?
With Uncle Will? With Uncle Will?
No. So I was up on the reservation yesterday fishing, and we messed around with you. Yep, we caught some good smallmouth. At the end of the live stream tonight, we'll talk about that a little bit. But today I just it was a little windy. I didn't feel like getting beat up on the lake, and I decided to go mess around for some salmon and got into them pretty good, cranking actually, and it was
that's so cool.
Pretty fun bite, man. Pretty fun bite.
A cranking bite for salmon. What kind of crankbait were you throwing, man? Let's talk.
A storm wigglewort.
That's oh my gosh! Wow, beauty. What
color?
color? What color were they chomping on? Was it a
like
hot color?
Like a chartreuse, orange belly, translucent blue back type of one.
Yeah, crazy, cool.
Yeah,
and they just
cool.
slam it.
Yeah, they slam it, and then they take off.
How big were they? Like from what to what?
I caught a couple really big ones. I caught some medium-sized ones. Like I don't know much about salmon.
What did you guess
weigh
they weighed?
Oh.
What do you think they weighed?
One was probably 25, and the others were 15 to 18.
And how long does a 25-pound salmon take to get in?
Not that long, actually. I mean, it really. He hit that.
Swam 1,000 miles to get there.
No, so I'm slow rolling that wigglewort. I get it. Boom. He grabs it.
Okay.
I'm using the St. Croix Legend glass rod, the bigger one, right? Oh, yeah. I got 14-pound fluorocarbon on it, and it's a fight, dude. Like awesome. They'll go, but I don't have to lift my power poles up or go chase them down. I can kind of work them around, even in the current.
Yeah. And so like 10 minutes for a 25-pound fish?
Yeah, 8 to 10.
Wow. You must be
fun.
Dogging on them.
Pretty cool.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Are you seeing those on the live scope, Travis? Right? Or are they just
Oh yeah. So when I was shallow, but when I get out in that deeper water where there's kind of staging, it's ridiculous how many are on the live scope.
That's so crazy.
Gosh, you can see hundreds of them. And I tried dropping spoons on them and doing all this crazy stuff. I think this winter I really want to, there's some really good YouTube videos on harbor fishing, river fishing for, pre-spawn salmon, before they really get up in there. And there's a lot of different techniques. They do bite, popular to, a lot of people believe that they're all snagged. That's not the case. If you use these techniques, and I fished
wigglewort, you don't have to snag them.
I fished them in the river, on spawn sacks and skein and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
it's fun, but that was always in waders. I always wanted to get into them in a bass boat, and so it was fun. I'm kind of like to get back out after them, to believe it or not. But we're gonna go chase some smallmouth tomorrow. I got guide trips all through the weekend, so we'll be dealing with the smallmouth. The smallmouth bite's been good. Still, it's amazing place, man.
Awesome.
Keep it better.
That's so crazy, man. I can't believe it. Wigglewort and salmon up.
So we'll get you up here. I think we got the third week in October. You'll be coming up to Lake Ontario. I do have a couple YouTube videos we're going to be putting out with Eric and I out there pre-Bassmaster Open. I have a team tournament that I have to upload here on the channel. And then we will get to the Bassmaster Open event as well. It's just kind of, we got a bunch of videos in line before we can get to all those. So I know those are always pretty popular.
For sure.
And we definitely go.
The team tournament, the one you and Will fished?
Yeah, we fished the Reynolds team tournament. That was back in August. So,
Right.
dude, it's like it's flying by, man. It's flying by.
Be October
The
next
time
week.
is moving
I'm not ready for
so
October.
fast.
September just happened.
Dude, I know. Endless summer, bro. Endless summer. You're trying to hold on to that endless summer right there, man.
Endless
Me
summer.
too.
Listen, we got a
I
bunch
don't know.
of people on the live tonight. I really appreciate it. All the comments coming in. We're going to bring Joe on shortly. If you guys have any questions for him, I'll let him actually introduce himself, give you a little bit of background on himself as well, for those that are not familiar. But he's one of the, I consider him one of the top smallmouth anglers in the country. And so he was on the Smallmouth Crush podcast, one of the 52 guests that we've had. And speaking of the podcast, we've got a bunch of interviews coming up, some really good ones. Next week, Curtis Richardson will be talking to us about fish care, keeping these smallmouth alive. When you have a mega bag in the live well and you're 30 miles from the launch and it's 9 o'clock in the morning and it's 85-degree water temp, what are we going to do? He goes through his whole system and claims he hasn't lost a fish in years with this. So that's going to be a really good podcast for you guys that are interested, and a bunch of good guests moving forward as well. So that's all I got for now.
Good deal.
Awesome, man.
Nice,
you guys
man.
ready?
Nice. Hey, Alex, just let everybody know. I'm just telling everybody on the stream on YouTube. I'm not looking at the YouTube comments, so I'm not ignoring you tonight. But Alex, if questions come up for me, let me know, bro.
Yeah, for sure. I got you, man.
Perfect. Well,
Thank you, brother.
there you go. All right, Alex, we'll talk to you a little bit later. Let's bring on Joe.
Let's do it.
Sounds good. And there he is. Joe, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Dude, I'm doing good. Can't wait to have a I don't know. Can we say serious on this show, Eric? Serious conversation with you? No, not tonight. Not tonight.
Me?
I thought you were going to wear a tie, Joe.
I think so.
You got me all freaked out. You know, you didn't know what to wear. Wear a tie. I'm like, damn.
No, I pretty much wear the same thing all the time. That's the,
So do I,
that's the beauty of Florida, right?
So you're living down in Florida. Before we get into this, Joe, if you could take a second or two to kind of introduce yourself to people that are not familiar, a little bit about your background, and then let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the notoriety that I have in the fishing industry always came as a result of when I lived in Ohio and fished Lake Erie, and then lived in Michigan and fished and lived on Lake St. Clair. So there was like a 20-year run there where myself and a few other guys were fishing all the big tournaments all along the Great Lakes and doing real well and winning a lot of tournaments and kind of doing things that were unorthodox in bass fishing. You know, that was like the breakthrough time for Great Lakes fishing and big water fishing. So I was head over heels with that. Came from a fishing family. You know, my dad was a part-time charter boat captain. Everybody in my family fished. So that's always been the thing. And about that time too, I started my promotional group, which is still in existence today, which is Millennium Promotions. And now I'm involved with primarily just media work, and content work and working with companies to help them kind of tweak their pro staff and everything, because I kind of have like a lot of background in a lot of facets of fishing. You know, I was the up and coming, you know, tournament bass guy, but then I was also kind of a national bass guy, and I was a seminar speaker, and I was a writer, and I was a product developer and a tester. And so I just keep doing different things all the time, it seems. I don't know. I guess that's just the way my life's always been. And now I live and fish in Florida because I've always been like super nuts about Florida.
Sure.
And, you know, there's still some big water stuff, you know, here, but it's ocean stuff, you know, and it's mainly shallow water, largemouth fishing when it comes to bass stuff. But yeah, so I don't even know if I answered your question. That was just kind of a recap of part of the resume.
Nah,
You know,
great answer, man. Where do you live in Florida?
I live in DeLand, which is on the St. Johns, very near the St. Johns River.
Yeah, good bass fishing there for sure, man.
Yeah, it can be. You know, it's like anything else. It's seasonal, and it's a product of environmental changes. You know, we have a lot of floods and a lot of rain. up and down river. But it's cool. It's like one of the last places in Florida that's still like old Florida.
Wow.
So
Very
so
neat.
from a fishing standpoint, that's like, I moved here specifically for that. You know, I don't want to fish boat docks and here that.
Yeah.
I want to just go out in remote areas and fish. So it's cool.
Nice.
So 20 years ago, when you were up on Lake Erie and fishing big water for smallmouth and loving it, having success in tournaments, was it always something you wanted to do, was get away from that area and kind of like I would have a hard time leaving the Great Lakes, man. Like,
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that, you know, I still talk about the Great Lakes, and still my friends are still all fishing on the Great Lakes, and I was involved also a little bit in the ice fishing world up there, and I was really big into duck hunting up there. So it was a 365 type of lifestyle for me when I lived there. And everybody I talk to, like if I go do a photo shoot with pros, you know, David Walker or whatever, and I'm in the boat and we're shooting pictures, he goes, "Don't you miss fishing for smallmouth?" Right. And my buddies up there say, "Don't you miss fishing on St. Clair?" And I tell them all the same thing. I really don't. And it's nothing against, like, I know you're probably going to just cut me off your show right now. It's nothing against that. I think I just got away from the, you know, just I think I don't want to say I burned out on it, but I didn't need the boat rides and the rough water, and I needed to get away from that a little bit. And I missed the tournament fishing for sure. You know, you tournament fish, and if you leave that, I don't care if you fish your bass club every weekend or if you fish the BPT every month. If you cold turkey leave that, it's horrible. So you constantly think that, you know, because you're constantly driven. You know, there's always the goal when you tournament fish, even when you fun fish. Like if you fun fish on your lake behind the house or whatever your local lake is, you know, you live on near Lake Norman and you fun fish on Lake Norman. If you're a tournament fisherman, every single day you're thinking of, you're finding things, you're looking for things, you're refining things that you know in the back of your mind, the end goal is to produce in a tournament. So when you leave that, it's pretty wild. It's tough. So maybe it's good that I left that area up there because, you know, I'm not gonna. I think I would still tournament fish for sure, but I may still again too. So I don't know. But no, I don't. I miss aspects of smallmouth, but I don't miss that area.
Right.
So
I understand where you're coming from when it comes to you know, saltwater in Florida and doing some of that, because I know you still fish bass, but you're also really getting into some saltwater activities, which is something I enjoy it when I go down there, rent a guide or a charter for a day. It really intrigues me. And it's like, you know, if I had to do it all over again or, you know, another life, I think that's where I kind of belong, in that zone. So I get it. Yeah, I totally get it.
You know, it's funny though, because I've been that way in the outdoors and been involved in the outdoors full time for my whole adult life. And I have gone through phases of crazy addiction towards certain things. And you go, man, if I would have just been born in Central Florida, God, I could have surfed. I got buddies that all surfed their whole youth, and they tell me stories about how awesome that was. You know, you could grow up on the ocean. You could be there before, you know, mankind came in, and back when things were, you know, Florida bass fishing was a true next frontier and all that. But I mean, you know, I don't know. I think I think it can be cool no matter where you're at. It's just a matter of, you know, I think you just want to do a lot of different things. At least that's the way I've always been. But the whole thing, I mean, I certainly could never replace the time frame that I smallmouth fished on Lake Erie, because it was literally, and this is why I like fishing in the ocean, it was like a completely new frontier. It had never been done. You know what I mean? Those areas and those places and those lakes had never been explored for smallmouth bass. They were walleye fishing lakes. Guys charter fished for walleyes. Guys perch fished. When you went bass fishing, it was, you know, you just went to the closest rocky shoreline and used live bait and caught smallmouth, and guys ate them. That's what it was. There was no
That's
there was no modern bass fishing taken to that level. So every day you're out there, whether you're practicing for a tournament or just fun fishing, you're constantly thinking that you might stumble on something that is literally beyond your imagination. You know, you could stumble on these places. Like I can remember things when I fished there that you would take people who didn't fish on Lake Erie a whole lot and you would drive them over stuff and they'd look at the graph and they'd go, "Oh my God, what is that?" And you'd say, "They're all bass." And they'd be like, "Oh my God." And it would be, you know, so it was like,
wow.
That was never seen before. So there was a lot of that. So I guess I hit it, you know, on the right time and place for that because it was truly, you know, just new. It was super cool.
So
what
what's
made you explore? Oh, sorry, Travis. Go ahead, man. So many questions.
No. Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
Go ahead, Eric.
So who blazed the trail out on Erie and Lake St. Clair? I mean, who was the original trailblazer for deep water fishing in these virgin waters during your day?
Well, you know, truthfully, the way that whole thing kind of started, and you know, I don't. People may be interested in this or not, but today when you see tournaments on the St. Lawrence River or Lake St. Clair or Lake Erie, and you see all these different techniques and all these different ways that guys now bass fish on big water. When I started fishing tournaments like in the mid to late 80s, early 90s, there was very few people that even attempted those types, that style of fishing. Mm-hmm. Basically, the way it all started was guys went out in their bass boats on Lake Erie, stayed pretty close to shore, and drifted with the wind.
Okay.
You know, so you would drift with the wind, and people developed techniques with that, the drifting techniques. You know, you heard of drift and drag and all those different techniques. Yeah. And they were effective. And there were guys in Ohio and Michigan and things that were going out regularly in bass boats and catching smallmouth in 15 to 25 feet of water, drift fishing with grubs, some metal baits like silver buddy style baits and jigging spoons and things. But I think what really kind of started the movement towards big water fishing is I've always felt that western Lake Erie area was kind of the beginning of that because that's where some of the big tournaments first went. You know, if you're like a super tournament junkie, you can look up, like in the late 80s, they had Redman All-Americans on Western Lake Erie, but they were pretty much confined to just the harbor areas. Okay. But there was some people that were starting to venture out. So we saw that, and I think what happened was, you know, like when I was in high school, I joined a bass club in Ohio called Central Basin Bass. And that club was made and originated by guys that only fished on Lake Erie. And they were the only guys around that area that did that for the most part. And they had no desire to fish reservoirs and things. So it was like we were going to go fish Lake Erie. And it was kind of like started then, not that they were the only people doing it, but there are these little hubs of people in Michigan and Ohio and things that a handful of guys regularly fished on Lake Erie and Lake St. Clair, the Detroit River and places. And a lot of that stuff that's being done today and the equipment and things, that was all kind of trial and error stuff. I vividly remember the first time I fished with a guy that had a long shaft trolling motor. And he was a good buddy of mine named Dan DeVera. And at the time, you couldn't buy long shaft trolling motors. He made the shaft out of a piece of stainless steel or aluminum, maybe. I don't remember what it was. And wired it and extended the leads and everything and had the first trolling motor that when you used it in a wave bigger than this, it didn't come out of the water. So it was just like a light bulb. You know what I mean? It was like, well, that might have been step one. You know, I'm sure there was stuff before that. But then there was heavier baits, there was deeper water, there was drift control, there was better graphs, GPS came. So all these things snowballed. But we were really the guinea pigs, myself and a handful of people that took a lot of this and ran with it and just kind of applied almost kind of like common sense. Like we look at it today and we take for granted. Like if you would have given me a spot lock trolling motor in 1990, I would have won every single tournament for 5 years.
That's
You know
so
what I mean?
crazy.
So stuff that we have now, you know, think about the graphs and the trolling motors and the, you know, we were fishing with 12, maybe 24 volt trolling motors.
Wow.
You know, so we were trying to do all these things that we do now. So there was a lot of trial and error.
Back then, a 5-inch screen was like a big deal, right? Remember that? I mean, everyone.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, this was the time, and it doesn't matter. Like if I go back through my stories of it, there's always somebody that's before. You know, there was anglers that smallmouth bass fished on Lake Erie before me, or before Steve Clapper, or before some of the people that are associated with a lot of this. But it was during that time that when bass fishing was really evolving, and then like boat manufacturers and other companies started seeing the market for those northern markets, and they started refining their products to fit a little better with those northern markets. So we were out there doing all these things and destroying boats, but then we were also working with manufacturers and things to help refine equipment to make it more worthy of that. And it kind of all goes in stages. Like in the beginning, it was just like trying not to destroy your boat.
And guess what? It still is.
As it goes on through the stages, though, it became tweaking things. You know, it was better trolling motors. It was better charging systems. That's one thing that people didn't understand or took for granted. Because, you know, batteries drain. And, you know, so there's all these different little lures, line, GPS. You know, gosh, I can remember early on, I mean, you know, everybody has the story. I remember having a paper graph. I remember fishing before GPS.
Wow.
So, you know, Lake Erie was line that up with that on the shore to get in front of it and get 19 foot of water, and there's a rock pile.
Sure. Yeah.
And went from that to crossing 100 miles, you know, one-way drives across the lake, you know, open expanses. And there was always people that would push you. Like, I also vividly remember, you know, we used to fish around the Lake Erie Islands, and it was a big thing to say you ran your bass boat out to the islands, you know, because the people on shore in like 1989, when you go to the gas station with a bass boat at Lake Erie, they look at you like you are crazy. You know, that is a death wish in their mind. So to think you're going to the islands across the open water was a big thing. And then I remember going to Pelee Island, which was, you know, 20 miles one way. And that was a huge thing. And I remember thinking, we're making these giant runs and we're doing all this stuff in tournament bass fishing, and we're catching fish and we're winning tournaments and we're doing all this. And then I vividly remember the first time that Steve Clapper on stage said, "We crossed the lake." Wow. And that means he went from the Ohio side and fished the Canadian shoreline. He went all the way across the lake. And when he brought his fish in, when they brought their fish into the weigh-in, now this is back when team tournaments had like 8 fish limits. They brought their fish into the weigh-in, and they had 2 guys carrying the bag because it was so full, one on each corner, and they stacked the fish vertically so they'd fit all in one bag. And it looked like sardines in a can. And they had like 8 giant bass, and they put them up on the scales, and they won the tournament by like 10 pounds.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, they crossed the lake. And then, you know, years later, I was
man.
So
how about that?
It was stuff like that is, you know, that was the really cool part of fishing up there.
Quick question for you, man, since you've been in the smallmouth game so long. When did you first drop shot fish for smallmouth?
I could probably go back and figure out the year, but the progression of that essentially was we would fish grubs, and then we fished, you know, for bottom, you know, there was always jerk baits and rattle traps and crankbaits, and there was that thrown in the mix, and there was a big spinner bait phase and all that. But when it came to spinning rod structure, it was grubs, and then it was tubes.
Sure.
And then we did a bunch of stuff to refine the tube game, like better heads, better hooks, bigger baits. Then that started to fade a little bit because, you know, as this is all progressing, we're going from 2 big tournaments on the Western Basin of Lake Erie a year to 2 a month to 1 every weekend to 2 or 3 we were fishing 2 or more tournaments a week. So the fishing pressure was getting crazy. And we started to see applications for like more finesse stuff. And at the time, what I remember about drop shotting was it had started to come like on the pro tour. And I can't remember exactly the events where it really kind of popped its head up nationally, but it was Robo Worms, Light Line. This is from Japan. Everybody get ready. It's Japanese. Oh my God, this is revolutionary.
Right.
About that time, there was the light bulb for me and a couple other people, like, the tube gig is not, we're working way too hard to catch fish. We tried drop shotting and instantly it worked. And then it was also being able to present the bait better and not break off as much. It also helped you. We found as that moved forward, it became a big deal on, Lake Erie where I started was smallmouth bass and freshwater drum, which are known as sheephead up there.
Mm-hmm.
So sheephead are terrible, and there's tons of them, especially in the Western Basin. Sheephead love to hit tubes, and they're not that crazy about a drop shot. I mean, they'll hit it, but you can almost not fish a tube because of it.
Yeah.
So drop shotting started getting us back catching more bass and less sheephead. Wow. It just all made sense, and then it was one of those things that, the first day you used it, it was like, oh, whoa, don't even let anybody see this tied on my rod.
What's going?
You know what I mean? But then it was like 6 regular guys that you fish with all the time. All of a sudden, you're not seeing what's on the rod, and you're like, what are you using? What are you using? Well, I'm drop shotting it. So that blows up, and then we started refining the drop shot lures. It went from worms to goby baits and all that stuff. So
I want to talk. Listen, I got to know. I got to ask Joe about grubs, because like my first largemouth growing up was on a Mr. Twister, right? A grub with a little spinner. That was a big deal back in the day. And I use grubs today. I mean, Eric and I filmed some shows with it, but I use it more as a trailer, maybe on a swim jig every once in a while, than I do just on like a lead head or some type of terminal tackle. How are you fishing that? And like walk me through that, because it sounds like that was the deal back in the day, and you don't hear about it anymore much.
Yeah, well, I will say this. To your point, a grub can still be a really good smallmouth bait. I mean, I was using them until recent times. A lot of guys on Lake St. Clair still use them. They've kind of recently really been overshadowed by little swim baits. Like when the Kitech deal started and now everybody's got a little swim bait, but I mean, it's before there were the little swim baits, we were slow rolling, reeling grubs on Lake St. Clair, and that works great. But back when we were doing this on Lake Erie, that again, if you look at I'm just always crazy about like lore and history and bass fishing and all that. When I'm a kid and I'm 15, 17, and I'm looking for smallmouth information, because I live in Ohio. I don't live on Bugs Island. You know what I mean? So when I get my Bassmaster or my in-fisherman and they're talking all about Bugs Island, I'm like, that does me no good. I'm fishing out in the middle of this lake that has smallmouth. So the only information at that time, here we're talking mid-'80s, about smallmouth is the little pieces you get of people that are fishing for big smallmouth in Dale Hollow and some of the mid-south reservoir stuff. There's no information anywhere about fishing Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, Lake St. Clair, Thousand Islands, none of that. There was 1 or 2 tournaments at the Thousand Islands, if you remember, that were won with largemouth. And then Rick Klum won a tournament up there in the late 80s, early 90s, burning a spinnerbait for smallmouth. And that was like the first big smallmouth tournament ever on TV. But anyway, so I'm a teenage kid. I got no information. I'm reading about how they're catching them at Dale Hollow, and they're using grubs. Old school, cork handle, spinning rod. Remember Tennessee handle? Tape it to the rod.
Oh, hell yeah.
The whole deal. 8-pound green monofilament line, and you cast this thing out, and supposedly you jig it on the bottom or whatever. So we go out and take a little bit bigger grubs. At the time, Kalin's was the best grub you could buy.
Hell yeah.
You put it on a quarter, a 3/8, a half-ounce jig head, and you drift with the wind the way people drag tubes now. We drug grubs. And that was
you're dragging a grub like you would a tube back
correct.
then.
Before dragging tubes, believe me, there was dragging grubs. And they were, I still have.
I haven't dragged it. I have not.
I could still show you my package of 5-inch Kalen, grubs. The first big tournament I ever won, I was in high school. I won a Bass Federation Regional.
Nice.
Dragging a 5-inch grub at Vermilion, Ohio, in 32 feet of water.
I used to love the witch's tea color. Witch's tea.
There was
pumpkin chartreuse combo, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, and then that went to tubes. And then tubes were the only game in town. But we saw, and it's more than just the, this is what everybody's using. We saw major shifts in the fisheries in that part of the world. We talked a little bit, there was huge fishing pressure increases, but then there was also a huge change in what the fish were eating. When I started fishing on Lake Erie, there were no gobies. That's how old I am. There were no gobies.
That's crazy. What year
when
did the
gobies
gobies
came along?
What
changed
year was that?
a lot of stuff.
What year was that?
I don't know what year gobies came in, but somewhere 1990 maybe, 92.
Wow, man.
Yeah, something like that.
Were you affiliated with Northern Bass Supply at any point in your career?
I don't know that I was. I know the name, but I don't remember from where.
That's where I read about drop shotting. I fished a Bassmaster Top 150 on the Potomac River.
Wow.
And it was in the 90s. And I had a bullet sinker that I tied to the end of my line with a J-Ben Gamakatsu 1/0. I took a Berkeley blue fleck. Well, actually, it was straight purple. Power 4-inch, and I cut the tail off to make it kind of a cut tail at the time. I didn't. Oh, are we back?
I lost you for a minute.
We're back.
Sort of.
Yeah. Okay, we're back. Anyway, so I was fishing with Ken McIntosh, and we went up to Blue Plains. He was the day one leader, and he's throwing a grub, a double tail hula grub. And I catch like a 1-pounder. I think on my second drop, I missed one because I'm swing setting, like I'm snap setting instead of just pull setting because I don't know how to fish it. I just know that this technique was written about in Northern Bass Supply's newsletter, like a hard copy newsletter that I used to get at my house. And then I caught like a 3 and then a 2. And then I caught a perch. And he's like, this, and he hadn't caught a fish yet. He's day one leader. He's so frazzled. He goes, this isn't working. Pulls up the trolling motor and leaves. That's my first experience with a drop shot. It was unbelievable. It was in Blue Plains. It's a sewage treatment plant. It's uber clear water. There was like 10 boats in it. And it was totally pressured, but the drop shot they were eating regularly, like they'd never seen it. That was all in about a span of 30 minutes. I could have got my limit if he stayed. Yeah, I ended up in 11th place, but that was 4th place after day one. That's my home body. So drop shotting on the Potomac in the 90s. I bet I was the first guy to throw it. Isn't that crazy?
Wow. What's crazy isn't how you remember stuff like that. Like how I remember that tournament when I was in high school. You know what I mean? Like I was actually, I write a column for Bass Fan, and I was writing a column for Bass Fan this week, and I made a comment about how I could remember all these things, but I can't tell you any of the instructors I had in college. You know what I mean? Or even like most of the subjects. I can't remember any of those guys' names.
That's because
But I can tell you that I caught those fish on that grub when I was 17.
You got bass brain, man. I took a guy out that I was going to show how to throw a grub. In the spring, after a cold front, we had 3 days, and I said, look, dude, on the 3rd day of the warming trend, the bass are going to move up. This is late March. They're going to want to spawn. They're going to be off the first break. And I said, we're going to dead stick this grub. I'm going to stick a little 3-rattle, skinny-ass worm rattle in the witch's tea grub, Kalen's. We're going to stick it on we're going to rig it weedless with a 1/8 ounce sinker on, and we're going to fish it shallow in this lake. It was near a dump. And I said, now, when you pull it up, find some rock and just sit there and shake it. Shake it. Dude, he caught a 5, a 3, and like a 4 and 100 yards bank. And I loaned him my Loomis, my G Loomis GLX spinning rod. And he's like, he thought he like discovered gold. It was just a technique that, you could almost predict the bass were going to bite on that third day of the warming trend. Throw a grub, slow down, put a little worm rattle in it, and I think I had some scent on it. Back then, it might have been like, I don't know, real craw from Riverside, man, where they crushed up craws and looked orange. It was a great little scent. It gave me confidence. I'm not sure they could taste it, but it was awesome before power bait. Anyway, yeah, stories like that, I remember those for sure. We're bass friends, man. That's what we are.
I guess.
Joe, we got a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to bring Alex back in and see if he can ask away on a couple of these, and I'll be right back. 1 second here. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, for sure. So, Joe, M. Jones had a question for you. He wanted to know, so when you moved from up north down to Florida, did you really just have to restart with all the gear you had? Did you have to get rid of a couple spinning rods and pick up some flipping sticks or anything like that? Did you have to do a major turnover when you moved down there?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But there's like 20 people that are somewhere near St. Clair Shores, Michigan right now that are laughing their heads off because when I did that, I had the most epic garage sale you'll ever come across. And I got rid of whether it was duck hunting, ice fishing, or smallmouth fishing on the Great Lakes. I kept a lot of my smallmouth stuff, and I still have a lot of it. I was really, involved in a lot of the tackle manufacturing and things. So I had a lot of baits and things, but I kept a lot of stuff, and maybe I'll still use a lot of it, but a lot of the stuff was a major turnover, even for boats. I went from a big bass boat to a small aluminum boat. But yeah, tackle was a huge part of it. But that's the nature of the beast. And just like everybody else, I've still got volumes of gear that I don't use, but I can't get rid of just because you just can't.
Yeah.
You think maybe there'll be a day that they'll hit a red lizard with a chartreuse tail or something like that, and you're thinking, what is this? But that's part of it.
Hell yeah.
That's
me. That's me to a T. I still got my Richie T Groves, man.
Yeah.
And the worm rattles and that GLX Tennessee hand.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. Absolutely,
Wow, so
Joe.
good,
And then
man.
Sean Lai had another good question for you. So with, it's definitely in my area, the fall transition setting in. So I'm sure a little farther north, they're either getting into fall or they're right on the tip of it. So he wants to know, what temperature do the smallies and bait start to move shallow on the big bodies of water like Lake Michigan or Lake St. Clair, something like that?
It depends. It depends on the lake, and it depends on what they're eating.
Okay.
There's not a major mass shallow movement of smallmouth on all the Great Lakes. There are places and times that are world famous. There's a lot of fish that go in the Detroit River system. There's fish that go shallow on St. Clair. There's some fish that are open water fish that just move deeper and deeper that never really go shallow. They're going wherever the food is, and a fish that's living in 30 feet of water 8 miles from shore in the middle of Lake Erie is not going to run up to the bank. But you can count on that those fisheries that have some bait fish that move shallow, the bass will go shallow. And the way I always felt, regardless of where you're at on the system, was when you start getting cold nights and you start getting winds that routinely start to shift out of the north, and then it'll drop like into the 50s at night. And you'll see the first signs of like the water temperature starting to come down the next morning. It's crisp and cool, low humidity. There's a little bit of steam coming off the lake. You get 1 or 2 of those on the northern systems and the fish start moving and they start looking for fall feeds. In St. Clair, that was always late August, early September. That was this time of year. It's already happening for sure.
We got that going on
a little later.
Right now. Like tonight's going to be the coldest night. Yeah. Well, the weather's right since all summer.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's like, oh my God, the temperature went down and there's shorter daylight or whatever, but it's those times when you're going the next day and it's probably going to be nice in the afternoon, but it's kind of cold in the morning. When that starts happening, they definitely. But the thing about smallmouth is, regardless of where you're fishing them on those northern lakes, is they start to group and settle into where they'll be for winter, and they eat like crazy.
Wow.
And usually the harder and the worse the weather is, the more they eat.
How about that, man? How about that? Hey.
Yeah, some of my most epic days of fishing the Great Lakes were on horrific weather days.
Of course.
I had a horrific weather day with Travis.
It wasn't that bad.
I caught him pretty damn good.
wasn't that bad.
I almost died.
Another-
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to my mermaid who's watching right now. My mermaid.
Oh,
I see you out there, my mermaid.
there you
I
go.
found my mermaid for life, Joe. So what can I say? That's right.
Listen, Joe, don't you think there should be? This got me thinking because this little venture I did this year with interviewing some of the top smallmouth guys across the country. Some of these old timers, and we mentioned Steve Clapper and yourself, guys that I'm not calling you old timer, but guys that have done it back in the day. It would be so cool to be able to get more, I guess, information out of these guys, out of a Steve Clapper, like on the water, like some type of series. You know what I mean? Whether it be on YouTube or just a documentary, because people aren't going to remember this stuff 20, 30 years from now. You know what I mean? Like, I think
you're documenting it to some extent now.
To some extent.
And you were with your show. But I mean, the other thing for me, like my whole life now is consumed with kind of the storytelling aspect of bass fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's content development, whether that's written stuff that I do for columns. And a lot of times for like my experts, I like to lean on some of the old school guys. You know what I mean? Like I relate to them better. And I'm not necessarily talking about, like, I love to talk to Larry Nixon, but I also kind of like would rather interview Skeet Reese than some guy that just started fishing the tour last year or the year before that may be more popular with people that are younger.
Sure.
But that's just how so I guess what I'm getting at is, like, I totally hear you, but I don't know. I think the audience also likes, because the one thing, like with me, that's always been a point of contention is I've never liked when the industry relies on an expert tournament fisherman that was good 20 years ago. Now, granted, you have me on here, but we're talking old school smallmouth stuff and kind of the development of the fishing. But
Sure.
But I think that it's important. I think most of the fans and the people following the sport now, they want to know what guys are doing now to catch big smallmouth. Now, granted, when you see a guy and he's standing over structure and he's dropping a drop shot on an isolated rock pile, marking a fish, and he's catching it on a, Elastec bait, believe you me, all that came from me and my buddies.
Nice.
But they have refined it now, and they are using it to be relevant and to win tournaments. And they're doing things that I never did. Like, I never fished spy baits. I never fished all these different little tiny swim baits and all the things that are going on. So really the sport progresses with the relevance of the people that are winning tournaments. So I'm with you, man. You want to do old school stuff, I'm in. You can.
Yeah.
What
do you think? I mean, this is kind of there's going to be new techniques that are even perhaps crazier or better. Agreed? Or are we to the point where it's just fine tuning a couple things? Or is there going to be something that's going to be like, we're going to look back, 10 years from now and be like, wow, I can't believe we never used that back.
No, and I used to think that too, because I remember we would make a joke like, boy, they're always going to, like, we would go out and fish all these tournaments and I would have all this refined stuff and everything that would be new and all the hottest stuff. And some clown would beat me dragging a green tube on the bottom. And we would be like, there's the old green tube again, the old draggers. And it would drive us nuts. There's certain times a year that's by far the best way to fish. But if you look at the history, there are those things that have been, like, you can catch a lot of big fish on a blade bait right now. Like this time of year, when it gets cold water, silver buddy style blade baits. And there's a bunch of different kinds now. But they were catching fish, big smallmouth in cold water on blade baits before I started fishing. Like, we're talking 60s, 70s.
Sure.
So that still works, but so do swim baits, so do, like I mentioned, spy baits, so do Nico rigs, so do all these different things. And the tackle is more refined, and the line is better, and the line is thinner, and the electronics are obviously different. So I think you just add to the, and you'll see resurgences of things. Like, I see that as a writer and things with largemouth. We'll see a resurgence of plastic worm fishing, spinner baits. This year there was a lot of fish in tournaments caught on spinner baits.
Huh.
2 years ago, there was none.
How
So,
about that?
you know, we see that from time to time, but I think it just expands. You'll get more techniques, and the old ones will still work. A lot of them.
So I forget. I mean, you do keep up with a lot of stuff. I mean, your affiliation with Bass Fan. How long have you been with working with Bass Fan now?
You know, I'm not sure. I was thinking about that actually the other day. And I have a column that I write every Thursday on Bass Fan that we started, say, 6 or 8 years ago. And the popularity of it immediately was really, really high. And that was mainly because it was like the first column, opinionated style column that somebody did about bass fishing that wasn't just a PR plug and wasn't full of sponsor plugs and wasn't a bunch of bull. And people really, really latched onto that. And I still do it today. And I do 50 columns a year with them.
Wow.
50 unique columns. So
That's legit. That's legit.
There's a lot of readership there, but there's a lot of ideas there, and a little bit of, like, I'm a big fan of the professional bass fishing tours, and I keep up with what's winning and what guys are doing, and I know most of the guys, and I interview a lot of guys, and it's a lot of fun that way. But then I throw in just my own stuff every now and then. But yeah, and I write for Major League Fishing publications. I've been a contributor one way or another within Fisherman for 25 years. Off and on.
Loving Fisherman, man. Loving Fisherman. That's probably, I think it's one of the best out there, the Fisherman.
Yeah. And I mean, the magazine world's a lot different now than it used to be, but I try and, really keep up with the industry and really stay tuned in with the media stuff, because I don't see a lot of stuff that I like out there. You know what I mean? So I kind of want to provide stuff for people that may be more like us, that are, kind of more into just the story of bass fishing.
Yeah.
Right.
What did you do in the product development area and manufacturing area? You talked about that a little bit, and I'm curious because I'm a lure hound and I'm working on some, custom balsa baits and collaborating with custom painters right now. So tell me about what you did and who you worked for and what products you made. I'd love to hear.
From the lure standpoint, during the time, again, going back through that timeline, when tube fishing really hit it off on Erie, myself and a couple other guys worked with a manufacturer in Wisconsin called ISG, which at the time made a line of tubes specifically for us called Dream Tubes. And we designed them, and they were big, fat tubes. And they were really good smallmouth tubes.
Yeah, they got a clapper special.
Yeah, I named that. That was the name I came up with. And that was funny because if like when you have Steve Clapper on here, or if anybody that's ever fished with him, Clapper has a trick up his sleeve every day on something. And it's not that he's keeping it from you, but he is that dialed in, and he is that much of a tackle junkie that he is in front of the curve with so much stuff, even at his age today. And so he's always had magic tubes. He's had something. He's always had something no one's had. So that was one thing he had. So that was Clapper's magic. Then I developed the first drop shot goby lure ever. The first goby looking lure ever, which was Poor Boy's Goby. Myself, Steve contributed to that too. And a few other guys that fished on Lake Erie all the time, Dave Hayward and Jim Bench, and a few other guys that were big guys up there used it. But when we developed the goby lure, the drop shot bait, like I mentioned, we were drop shotting for a couple years using roboworms like everybody else. So then we're out in the middle of Lake Erie, and I'm winding up a big smallmouth, and it jumps next to the boat, and it spits up a goby. And then we weigh our fish in, and in the live well, they're spitting up gobies. And everywhere you go, the fish are eating gobies. And I'm like, why are we using roboworms for lures? So I designed, drew it out on a piece of paper, worked with the manufacturer. They came up with the goby bait. When they came up with the first drop shot goby, it won every big tournament on the Western Great Lakes for 2 years straight. It won at least $1 million in tournament earnings in 2 years. Every tournament was won on that bait. So
That's crazy.
Yeah. But it's a good bait, but it wasn't like, I came up with the Senko or something. It just matched the fishery better. So the fish ate the heck out of it. And then later I came up with a big goby swim bait called the Goby Replica, which caught a lot of really big fish. But it had some manufacturing issues and things, and it got in the market, and I still get guys all the time that ask me about it.
I just got a message tonight on my Instagram someone was going, when he's on, make sure you ask him if I can get any more of those because I lost the last one.
Yeah, and I get that. Honestly, I mean, I'm not in the loop. You're way more in the loop, and I still get like once a month somebody emails me, dude, I'll pay you whatever you have. Because in cold water situations, it's a phenomenal bait for trophy fish. That's what it is.
Do you still have any? Like a bag?
Sure, he's got.
If I do, I bet you it's less than 4. I got a buddy that probably has 20 maybe, but I don't know anybody that really has a lot.
We need to see it. Do you have it in your studio right now?
No, I do not.
Oh, man.
I can find
the kind of stuff I love,
if
man.
you go on, when you afterwards search Joe Balog Goby replica, you'll find a picture because it was in Bassmaster and stuff.
Okay, cool, man. Cool.
Do they ever pop up on eBay anymore?
Beats me. I don't know. I don't keep up.
Travis, have you heard about that bait? Did you throw that bait?
I've owned them. I've had them. When I really started getting the Great Lakes, and this was probably, 2010. What's that? No, there was I owned some for sure. Now I didn't know what to do with it at the time.
Neither did we. You know, that was the thing. Is that as I made that bait and developed that bait, it went through some prototyping things, and it always was a difficult bait to fish. But once it got in the hands of some other people, we kind of defined and refined some of the techniques. And actually, Scott Dobson, who everybody that smallmouth fishes knows Scott Dobson now, was one of the guys that figured out one of the things that was so unique about that bait is that you had to like pull set the hook set with it. And it's because it's so big and it has so much plastic that when it rotates in the mouth of the fish after they eat it, if you set the hook real hard, it's kind of like when you're flipping a big weight for largemouth. You flip the fish over and you never hook them. And we looked at that more and more and more. And one of the big differences is when you take a big, like when you get a big smallmouth. Okay, so a big smallmouth that's 6 pounds is 24 inches long. Big fat fish. And you look at a largemouth that's 24 inches long, big fat fish. And a smallmouth's mouth is this big, and a largemouth's mouth is this big. Sure. And a largemouth's throat is this big, and a smallmouth's throat is this big. So essentially you have this big mass of plastic, and it's like as big as my phone, you know, it's like this big. And it's in their mouth. And with a largemouth, a lot of times when you're setting the hook and you're winding that fish, the bait and everything's moving, but there's all kinds of room in there for that hook to find a spot and then hook the fish. With a smallmouth, it's like its whole mouth was filled with the bait. And we would set the hook and get the fish like 4 or 5 cranks. And I mean, we would land like 10% of the bites. It was terrible. But then once we figured out the sweep set deal, it was like 80% of the bites. I mean, it was that different. So you had to train yourself how to fish it, took the right kind of tackle. It became a certain time of year bait. It was a cold water bait, spring and fall. But I mean, some of the biggest bass I ever caught, smallmouth I've ever caught in my life, I caught it. It was insane how big fish would eat it. And they would hit it so hard, it was insane. So it just worked, but it just never.
Wow.
It didn't, I don't want to say it wasn't perfect. And it became an issue with manufacturing it. The manufacturer was difficult to deal with. And we had all these issues. And then finally I just washed my hands of it. But it definitely works. If you still have them, don't lose them. They work.
Yeah. Right. Alex, do we have any more questions coming through?
Yeah, for sure. We have a really good one from John here. And John, I'm probably really going to mess up your last name here, so I apologize in advance. But John Kleineter wants to know, Joe, can you talk a little bit about rough water boat development when you were with Ranger? I know you talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but it was a question that really interested me because I would imagine, if you're developing a bait, you don't like this, it's a little easier to change a small detail or do that. But if you're working on a boat, in my mind, it's going to be a lot harder to change something. I mean, you literally have to build a whole new boat to make an adjustment. So could you talk a little bit about how you guys went through that rough water boat development when you were with Ranger?
Yeah. It's kind of hard now because things aren't the same as they were when I fished all the tournaments and we were doing these things. But there were a handful of guys that Ranger leaned on for suggestions on boat revisions. Now, did I ever sit down and lay out a boat a blueprint of a hull design and submit it and they built it. Heck no. I don't know that much about building boats, but I do know about reinforcing boats for trolling motors and about how big dashboards should be for graphs and about where the seat should be and about how they run. So all these different small little quirks and little revisions at the time, which the world is a different place now, but guys like myself would talk to the manufacturers directly, you know, whether they were sales reps or vice presidents of the companies or whatever. And you're standing around the boat show in the spring and you're talking to the vice president of the company and you're going, can you see where the batteries are in this boat? And you open up the back battery compartment and you've got a battery sitting on a shelf in the middle of the boat because you can't fit all the batteries across the back. And then you say, can you imagine driving that across Lake Erie like that? What's going to happen? So when we, like I had a full set of batteries early on. This was not a Ranger, but I had a full set of batteries that were mounted in the front of one of my early bass boats that ended up down in the back of the bass boat.
Oh my God.
Through the floor into the hull and slid all the way to the back. And I had 2 deep cycle 24 or 12 volt batteries that were wedged in the back under my live wells.
Huh.
So that's what we started with.
Unbelievable.
But then as things were refined, there's no question in that early 90s to early 2000s, Ranger was an industry leader for the most meticulous, best built bass boat you could buy. No questions. Anybody that argued that didn't know what they were talking about. Today, there's a lot of really good bass boats. I mean, I see them all the time when I go with pros on photo shoots, and I look at the way, you know, a Bass Cat is laid out, the way a Legend, the way, you know, a Phoenix. Oh, there's a lot of bass boats that are really, really nice. But a lot of that was kind of, you know, borrowed from other people's ideas and things. But what we were really responsible for, myself and other guys, were those little things like how to make them safer, where you need more storage, where you know, how they run through the water, but more importantly, like what happens when your boat's continuously wet. You know, do you have a way to keep your rod lockers dry in reality when they're underwater all the time? You know, how many bilge pumps are in the boat when you fill a boat all the way to the top of the driver's seat and it's full of water when you're running? You need to move the water out of that boat immediately. So Ranger was really good with that. And I can remember several little key things like that. And most of them were just strength and durability and safety. They were huge and still are, I'm sure, on safety. But that was the only way to go. And then about the time I was getting out of the game, there were actually, you know, meetings where some of the Great Lakes guys developed a single boat for the Great Lakes. And that was that big 22-foot D-Series boat that they had. Yeah. Which was the boat that we had talked about. We had wanted for a lifetime. We said, build us a bass boat that looks like a bass boat from the top, but looks like a big, deep walleye boat from the bottom. Make all the layout and the storage in the compartments like a bass boat, but make it on a walleye hull. And they did. And that boat was invincible. I think Steve Clapper still has one.
No, they still make that from what I hear.
Do they? I didn't know if they did.
You have to special, if you ask a special order, let me know in the comments, guys, but I'm pretty sure they will make that boat for you.
Yeah.
Very cool.
You know, and I ran 600 series boats for a little while. You know, so that was a big thing too. But
did you ever like get in, what is it? What's the walleye? The 620s?
Yeah.
Back in the day, did you ever think maybe this is a boat I need to be?
Yeah, at the time, fishing all the tournaments and all over the Great Lakes. I fished more national stuff later, like 2010 to 2015. But in that early 2000s period, I was mainly fishing Great Lakes stuff. And in 2000, I think like 6, 7, and 8, I had 600 series walleye boats that I used as bass tournament boats. Huh. And I had them specifically because at that time, we went from having some big tournaments to just this groundbreaking, massive stuff. There was a FLW. There was 2 FLW Open tournaments on Lake Erie in those years that were $200,000 paydays. There was really big money fishing Erie and St. Clair. So I got those walleye boats just to fish those tournaments and rigged them just like bass boats. And they're wonderful. but they don't fish shallow as well.
Right.
They're okay, but they're not bass boats for
Correct.
But for out in the open waters, my buddies that live up there now still have them. You know, so that's the way to go if you only fish out there.
True. Wow.
Yeah.
Was that the best riding rough water boat you ever saw?
Probably in a true bass boat design was in my time was a I want to say it was the 520 Ranger or the 521. I can't remember which one was better in the rough water.
Okay.
Joe, let me ask you this, because you do spend some time now in the salt water.
Yep.
I'm just thinking out loud here. I just want your opinion. Single council or what, that one of them bay boats.
Oh.
Could we roll with that out here? Would that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I was at Lake St. Clair 2 weeks ago for a photo shoot, and I was surprised how many T-top saltwater style boats I saw up there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people there.
How about that?
So they're wonderful. Like the one I have here is just a giant bass boat style boat, just bigger, deeper, has a roof. But yeah, you could do something like that.
What's the do they have, because I'm not that familiar with saltwater. I mean, are they running 60-inch shaft trolling motors on those?
I have one that has I have one that has a 72-inch shaft. But you can run a 60 on some of them. But in the industry and the boat world and everything, that has been a huge push lately is saltwater fishing with trolling motors. Once that was another thing too, like we're talking about revisions in boats and everything and equipment and things. There was a time that I had a trolling motor that had spot lock on it before anybody had spot lock. So that was another thing too, is I worked with Johnson Outdoors. We did trolling motor development. We did all kinds of testing, chargers, talons, whatever it was. But before there was spot lock trolling motors that were in the bass fishing world, there were some electric steer spot lock trolling motors in the walleye and saltwater fishing world. And I put one on a bass boat. And it
Very cool.
wasn't great for certain applications, but for open water fishing on Lake Erie, it was incredible. And I vividly remember a tournament, like an open tournament, a Bassmaster tournament, that we all ran most of the field. There was several people that fished one small area in Canadian waters. It was one long point off of an island. And there were, say, 20 boats within shouting distance of each other on this one thing. The current was bad. The lake was rough. People were drifting. They were standing on trolling motors, on foot control trolling motors, and I was on spot lock, and I was just murdering the fish because they were sitting right on this edge. And people were drifting all around me and yelling at me and everything because they couldn't figure out how I was sitting. And,
How about that?
and I'm telling you, within a year, I saw 8 or 10 people that went and got electric steer trolling motors and put them on bass boats. And they were bad for certain applications, but we would, I would change it out and use certain ones for certain days and things. So that was part of it. And then working with the manufacturers and talking to other people, then you start to see this stuff revised across the board. And there's all these advancements always with technology and things. And so much of that open water, big water stuff all came from that same period of time. It was really neat.
Very cool.
So, Joe, what's your what are you up to now? What's your plans for the future?
Well, I still fun fish. I toy around with the idea of tournament fishing some more again.
Okay.
I'm very busy in the industry with both writing and media work and working for different brands, helping them push through some of their pro staff work and their initiatives that they have for their pro staff. I'm in charge of a lot of imagery and a lot of video work and just helping brands really connect with the fishermen, because I've kind of been on both sides, sponsor side, sponsee, I don't know if that's a word, sponsoree, whatever side. So I kind of can help them get that accomplished because I know the demands that pro fishermen have. But I still kick around, and I'll tell you, it's probably off topic, but one of the things that actually has kind of kept me in the last year or two of thinking of not wanting to do any more tournament fishing is technology. I just think that with sonar in the situation that we're in right now, it is really just getting to a point where it's not something I really want to participate in. And I don't mean that from like that's not fair. I mean, nothing's fair. You know what I mean? GPS wasn't fair. Side imaging wasn't fair. Forward-looking sonar, whatever. But it's just not what I want from fishing anymore. It's just constant scanning and graphing and technology and pushing, and I can't make that work in my mind. So I don't really know. I think for now I'm going to stick to fun fishing and doing and just going when I can.
All right, let's say you have let's say next Saturday you got a free day. Where are you going? You going bass fishing? You going on the salt? What are you fishing for?
That's a weighted question because my wife's going to be with me probably if it's a Saturday. If it's a Tuesday, I'm going bass fishing at Rodman Reservoir in Central Florida. No question. The end. That's where I'm going. Even if I went the day before.
Really? Okay.
Yep. Really? I fished it. I fished Rodman for the first time this year. It was a massive, like 20-mile-an-hour wind. We caught some of the fish in the calmer river stretch, but it was really kind of cool to go see a storied place like Rodman that I've been reading about.
That was the thing. Like with me coming down here and everything, in the 80s, our family vacation, me and my dad, was to come to Central Florida and bass fish, and we went to the places. You're a kid from Ohio, and you come down to these places, and it's like the lost world in Central Florida.
Sure.
There's these remote areas and giant bass, and it's everything I've ever wanted from bass fishing. And I said when I was 12 years old, someday I was going to live in Florida. Just took till I was 43 or something to do it, but I made it happen. That's my bread. But on the weekends, I'm going saltwater fishing for sure.
Have you been to the headwaters yet, or Kenansville, Jurassic Park?
Yeah, I've been to Kenansville a bunch of times, and all the places down there. The only one I haven't been to is the new one, the Headwaters, and I need to go.
What'd you think of Kenansville?
Oh, it's good. It's been good. I was down there kind of early when they first got it going, and
oh wow.
It hasn't been as of late with everything screwy in the world, but most years I try and do one or two trips where I go fishing with JT Kenny somewhere down there, and he's always dialed into everything, and he's a lot of fun to fish with. So I'm kind of in the loop with him on that, and I've got some other buddies that go down there, but I kind of stay when you live. If you're living and fishing in Central Florida, there's places pretty close to your house. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like there's a lot of really good places around here. So it's hard for me to go far.
Hey,
what is your favorite time of the year?
Tin boat? Oh, go ahead. Okay.
My favorite time of year to fish for bass in Florida is probably in April. But December is a close second.
Oh, wow.
It's really good. It's really good from November till, say, May. And then June through the fall, can be good or it can be bad, and the weather gets pretty rough. But
like just hot? Humid?
Yeah, it's hot. And I mean, we have massive thunderstorms most days in the afternoon in Florida, in Central Florida. You have a bunch of water, that sometimes the rivers get real high and the lakes get real high, low water. You got to always be looking over your shoulder with the weather. It gets super hot. So, I mean, just a nice, fairly mild day in December, that's killer because we hardly ever have rain. It's great. But the fishing is the best in February, March, and April. And usually the fishing pressure falls off in March, and then there's still a lot of really shallow fish and nobody's fishing, and it's really good.
Huh.
Have you caught your double-digit Florida bass yet?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Several big ones. Although it's crazy because, and this is like talking real weights, like that we use a scale for, not not
imagine. Right.
But my dad caught a 12-pound 1-ounce bass in like 1973 in Florida on a family vacation in a rowboat. One of these stories. He tells the story. He tells me how he cast the plastic worm. He tells me the way that what his buddy said before he made the cast. He has it all down. So I've heard the story. By the time I'm 20, I've heard the story, 90 times.
Yeah.
And then we go to Florida, and I've heard, I still hear the story. This has been 4 years. So when I come to Florida, I'm thinking, well, his family record is definitely in jeopardy now. And I've caught like 6 bass between 11 pounds, 4 ounces, and 12 pounds even.
Wow.
No.
I've never caught a 12-1 or bigger. So I don't know.
What did you throw to catch those bass? Do you remember the lures for your 6 bass?
I was going to ask that. Yeah, is there a consistency on baits or?
Oh, yes. Yeah, if you're talking trophy largemouth in Florida, yeah, I can go. Man, I can talk. If you want to talk about something, I can talk about it. But you have to remember a lot of that, not all of it, and it's kind of misleading unless you live and fish in Florida a lot. But several of my big fish have come on shiners, wild shiners like.
Sure.
But when it comes to artificial lures, every big bass I've caught, I'm talking like, say, a big 9-pound, 10-pound class fish or bigger, have come on, probably 80% have come flipping in mats with some kind of beaver-style bait, flipping mats. I mean, that's just definitely
so crazy.
Probably the best way to catch a big bass in Florida day in and day out. But I have caught a lot also on a plastic worm, just Texas rig plastic worm. I caught one that was just under 10 pounds on a 16-inch plastic worm where I was just swimming it.
Nice.
And I caught a bunch of big fish doing that. And I've caught several pretty big ones on big swim baits.
What's your favorite?
What's your favorite big swim bait?
What's my favorite what?
What's your favorite technique? Like if you one style.
Time out. You got to ask about the big swim bait. You got to ask him about.
Okay, you ask him after me.
I asked it first.
Take a number.
My favorite way to fish is probably just plastic worm fishing. Texas rig, old school casting plastic worms. But if you said you get to pick a lure, you have to catch the biggest bass you can, you get one choice. Without a question, I would use a big plastic or a big beaver style plastic like a Z-Hog or a Sweet Beaver or a D-Bomb on an 1.5 ounce weight, braided line, and a flipping stick. No doubt.
Nice.
So that's but I love to catch. We have a real good time of year here. We catch a lot of big fish on a spinnerbait. I love doing that.
Fun.
But as far as swim baits, it's kind of misleading because I've caught some big fish on some glide baits and several big swim baits. But there's a big boot tail style shad body swim bait called a big hammer. And you use a big hammer the way most people use like a skinny dipper, but it's a big piece of meat and it's got a big tail like as big as my thumb. And it's got but it rolls, but it swims, so it's like 8 inches long. It's a big piece. You put it on like a 10-aught hook. That's the swim bait that I've caught more big ones on today.
Nice.
And you're rolling it over grass normally?
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah, just wherever you might be fishing.
Okay.
Where you can make contact with a big fish, usually in the spring, which is usually reed lines, around pads, around grass, just wherever you might make contact with a real big fish.
If you had a tournament down there and you caught some fish on that bait, is that something where if you had the balls, could you catch 5 good ones in 8 hours on that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I have not spent enough time to make a really educated judgment, but I have not caught a lot of big fish on traditional West Coast style glide bait techniques in Florida. I've caught some and I've had a lot of big ones follow, but I have not said, if you're a big bass junkie and you go on the internet and you watch a video with like Butch Brown, you get done watching that and you go sell everything I have, get me 6 of whatever the hell he's using, and I'm going to get one rod and I'm going to go in my little boat and I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. And I have tried that several times in Florida and come up really poor in the results. And while it's easy for people to say like, oh, I've tried this and I've done this and I've tried this, like there's a lot of times I talked about shiners. There's a lot of times I catch, I catch my own shiners. I have a big tank in a facility here at the house where we cure shiners and all this different stuff. Really crazy about shiner fishing. When you shiner fish, when you catch your own bait, there's a lot of downtime because a lot of times you put out bait or chum for the shiners, and then you have to wait till they show up, and then you can catch them, or you come back like 3 days in a row, and you're on the water a lot with like a couple hours. Like, well, I might as well fish. I'm here. So you go out and you throw this gigantic swim bait for like a week, and you get one follow.
Yeah.
And you go, what the hell? You know what I mean? And then you use other stuff and you catch fish. And then you watch, and so that's been my my thing is I go do that, and I'm trying to figure that out. I have not got that dialed in, and I've talked to other super hardcore swim bait gurus that have gone a lot of places in the world and have caught a lot of giant bass on swim baits, and they said, I hate coming to Florida. I don't even go there anymore because they will not bite those big baits. I've had them bite them, but not nearly as many as I've thrown for. So I don't know. But the big hammer is kind of more like a big dipper. You know what I mean? Like you'll get bites on it.
You mentioned spinner baits and spinner baits kind of coming back and catching fish down in Florida on a spinner bait. Are we talking willow or Colorado, or I mean, what's the setup on like your ideal spinner bait, or is it depend on the situation, or are you pretty set into a handful?
I'm pretty set. I mean, I you know, there was, again, because I lean so much on history, there was this big thing in Florida fishing years and years ago where that's kind of where the big willow blades started. You know, it was the big Roland Martin style big willow leaf spinner baits, and they definitely work. But I typically still use big Colorado and big Indiana blades on spinner baits. And when the fish in Florida get on a spinner bait in the area that I'm from and that where I'm at, the St. Johns River system, they're usually in very shallow water, and they want something that moves a ton of water, and they want a big disturbance, and it's as old school spinner bait as you can get. It's 25-pound mono, you know, number 5 blades, half-ounce baits, and waking them.
It's awesome.
And they cream it. So
nice.
It's a short window. You know, it's when the shad start moving and the fish are done spawning and all that. There's this spinner bait season. A little bit in the spring too, but for me, I like, if I'm going to use that, it's going to be a big disturbance. You know, I'm not just going to. Now, there's lakes that you could go throw spinner bait, you know, out in the middle of Lake Kissimmee with willow leaf blades or whatever and catch fish, but you know, I just don't do a lot of that, you know, and now there's chatterbaits. You know, I don't know. For me, spinnerbait is shallow stuff and burning them. What's
your most, I guess, sentimental or favorite lake in the country?
Rodman Reservoir.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Why?
Always has been. Something about the first time I came there.
Huh.
Never even was a consideration. Like, told my wife years ago, put my ashes there.
Wow.
No doubt. Now, I really do have kind of a soft spot for Lake St. Clair too, because, you know, when I started fishing on Lake St. Clair, really a lot, it was like 2004. So I moved there in, I think, 2005. And it became popular in like 2008, 2010, probably 2010.
Right.
So like 03, 04, 05, 06, when you're fishing Lake St. Clair, it's 100 fish days throwing a rattle trap. I mean, it's you know, crazy. Crankbaits and square bills in the spring where you've got 4 people in the boat and they're all hooked up to cranking. You know, it's
my God.
Crazy.
That's awesome.
Crazy. You know, and big fish.
Wow. I got to go get a battery charger. I'll be right back.
All right, cool.
So there's always going to be that, but that type of fishing isn't there anymore. It's still good there, but it's not like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So, you know, but that will always be someplace. I remember that was just so much expansion in the sport again. You know, Erie was early on and all the different deep water stuff, and then St. Clair came on as the place to be to catch shallow big smallmouth. It was just so cool.
St. Clair is interesting. I've fished it a handful of times. The only tournament I ever fished, well, I fished 2. I fished some, I don't know, there was some Dodge truck tournament there. I forgot the name, and then Bassmaster Open in 2010. Very interesting body of water. Is it the same guys, and maybe you don't know this, is it the same guys doing well there, like in local stuff, or can a newbie figure it out and or does it change, or is there still guys that are like, is there secrets that are not known on St. Clair?
No,
How is that lake?
No, there's never really been that. You know, there was early on, like when we fished a lot of tournaments on Erie, there were places that only certain people knew that you could say were secret spots. You know, there were places. You know, they all eventually get out. You get seen,
right?
And that was a big thing, but there was never that secret stuff really on St. Clair. There was. And there are guys that have fished there for years that are still fishing there now. They're doing well. And there's new people that I don't know. And people, well, you know who, Jim, whatever. And I go, no, I don't know who that is. He wasn't around when I fished. Oh, well, he's been winning everything the last 3 years.
Huh.
So people get dialed in. But the thing that always is unique about St. Clair, it makes it so awesome, is that it's kind of like whatever you're comfortable doing, you can succeed. Now, there's times that they'll bite a crankbait. There's times that they'll bite a drop shot. There's times you can catch them in 3 feet. And there's better times for everything. But if you go put your time in and really fish the way you want to fish, you can figure out a way to catch. There's just a lot of fish in the lake. I mean, there's so many fish in Lake St. Clair from one end to the other. It's unbelievable at times when you can really figure that out. So you can kind of fish your strength and you can do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But it's what throws everybody for a curve. Everybody that ever goes there, there's people probably listening that are gonna go there, is they try too hard to figure it out. You can't go to St. Clair. There's times you can go there and you can catch a fish and you can drive around and you can put them on the graph and you can see where they're at. Okay, there's a little bit of rock on the edge of that grass and there's cabbage weed and there's a little sand, and that's exactly where the fish are today. I agree. But then the next 10 fish will seem to come from random nothing.
Okay.
And I coined it a long time ago before I lived there. I called it Lake Random, because when you were a Lake Erie guy fishing rock piles and you went to St. Clair, it was like, what are we even fishing? What is the drop off from 11 to 11 and a half? Like, what is going on? There's no reason for the fish to be here. You don't know what the fish know. The fish have a reason. There's seams and there's current seams and there's so basically the moral of the story is when you go to Lake St. Clair, you need to fish a lot. And when you catch fish, stop asking questions as to why they're there. Just apply your time to find fish and then do what you do and you'll catch them. I mean, it's
so obviously you were a deep water guy as well, big water. Did you get into the just getting up shallow, sight fishing, throughout the summer? Was that a style that you vibe to or not really?
It's funny because when I fished and all the time I spent on St. Clair and then fished with other anglers who did really well in tournaments, like I mentioned Scott Dobson, you would see drastic differences in the way other guys fished. On Erie, you never saw that. It was like, hey, you just won a bass tournament on Lake Erie. So did I. Let's go fishing together. Let me guess, you're going to throw a drop shot and you're going to go mark some structure and drop your bait right on the fish and catch them. Wow. Oh, let me guess, you're throwing the same bait as me. Wow, big surprise. But you go to St. Clair and it's like I'm fishing out in the middle of the lake throwing a swim bait, and another guy's fishing up on a sand flat in the river in the current 3 feet of water casting a drop shot or something.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot, and there are a lot of different ways to fish there, and a lot of different people fish it differently. But again, I think it goes back to that whole thing, like I was saying earlier. There are fish in every part of that lake all the time. It's so fertile.
Sure. And
with all the current and all the bait, and it, if you stop, if you've never been there, if you stop and think about it, even if you have, when you go to most lakes and you go, man, look at this big bay. There's sand and there's rock and there's grass and there's little grass here and there's big tall cabbage grass here, and it's protected from the wind. You're like, man, this is a really great area. Now take that and make it 20 miles this way and 20 miles that way, and every inch of it's that way. That's Lake St. Clair.
Eric,
there's no part of that lake that isn't really good habitat for smallmouth bass. Yeah. So there's fish everywhere. I just had a guy call me a couple weeks ago that was going up there for an event. And I told him, I said, dude, if you like to fish shallow, put your boat in the water, put your trolling motor in the water, and start fishing. I said, just drive around different parts of the lake and stay on your trolling motor and look with your eyes and find stuff you like. And it was qualifier for a qualifier type of deal, like a regional for a club or something. So these guys came out of Ohio. He called me last week. He won.
Oh,
and what's funny is he goes, I couldn't catch him. I tried this and this and this, and finally I just went fishing. I stayed on the trail. And I was like, and it wasn't. I didn't give him any areas. So cool. He just fished.
So cool.
So that's what's so cool about that lake.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
There was a guy that my partner knows, and he's a Southern boy. He'd never been to the St. Lawrence, and all he did was fish every windy point he could see with a chatterbait shallow, and he ended up top 10. Isn't that crazy? Never been there.
No, I believe. And you know what? We're seeing that.
Nothing. That's all.
Like so much of what I'm doing now is media work, and it's working with some of the biggest names in professional fishing. So I'll interview, like I mentioned, Skeet Reese, or I'll interview Michael Neal, or I'll work with Stephen Browning last week, or all these different guys that when you look at their stats, or Jacob Wheeler. I was with Jacob Wheeler last week, just talking to him about another event he was involved in. So many of them more every year as I'm doing this more like as somebody as a fan of the sport, they're telling me the same thing. Like they're not even looking for any information, not that they can get it. They're not relying on they're literally putting their boats in the water and putting their head down and just fishing and looking around and going by like, gotta go, time's wasting. And a lot of them have told me that on the BPT side of things, a lot of that's because they're getting pushed so hard with the score tracker when they're in tournaments. So they know all the time every fish that's being caught in the tournament. And it's forcing them to fish faster, move more, and not second guess themselves and use intuition and just burn. And it's working.
Interesting.
Wow.
And it's working more and more and more. So now most of them are like, I don't practice. I don't want to practice. Put the boat in the water, hammer down.
Wow.
So that's, I've always thought that's a cool part about fishing, man, about bass fishing. The more you know, sometimes the worse it is.
For sure.
Interesting.
Dang. So, man,
Food for thought.
I love to sit down in a little area and pick it apart for 8 hours with a little Ned rig. You know what I mean?
Well, that's your deal.
That's crazy. I don't know.
That's how you fish.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's stuff like that I'm fascinated with. I'm always
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Even though I'm not like tournament fishing,
I love
it's interesting to me. The sport has really progressed the last few years. As far as people's abilities and things, from technology to the different tournament trails and the way and like I was talking with the guy the other day. When I was growing up, if you wanted to learn what happened in a tournament, you waited till the following month and hoped that they talked about it in a magazine. Now we watch these guys perform. There's 10 cameras and 10 different boats, and it's real time, and we're watching it happen. And it's like we're learning so fast that everybody is better. You hear this all the time when they interview pros. Oh, the competition today is so great. I would think I'd have been great too if I got to watch it all happen live. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty easy to figure it out when you watch people do it. So it's the sport has really advanced because of that. Just on air presence.
It's also, I mean, from my standpoint, so I think it was Chris Johnson won an event on the St. Lawrence two years ago, perhaps, or maybe last summer. And it's a spot a lot of us get fished, but after that was aired, it was an obvious area that boats flock to, and I guide out there every day, so I see them out there. And I'm like, damn it, screw that spot. I ain't never going there again. My buddy Gary went in at this Bass Open and took a top 10 on that spot.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know how I feel about that coverage stuff, man. Like,
No, I know.
Well, it's a community hope for a reason, right? I mean, because
it wasn't until it was on air.
Well, no. Oh, I see what you're saying.
The community got too big for him.
But I mean,
it's still produced though.
Yeah, that's
you know what I
the
mean?
case with so much stuff. And you know what was the one that hit me the hardest when it came to broadcasting, or it became the notoriety of fisheries or something. If you think back to when they were named, they still name, like Bassmaster Magazine names top lakes in the country.
Yes, yep.
Which that's since we're just talking on a late night podcast, the biggest bunch of bull there is in the world. That's literally what tourism agency called me first. So anyway, but they do also figure and catch data with tournaments and things. But I mean, it's hard to say what's better or what's worse. So they have, though, shed light on a lot of fisheries that people weren't familiar with through that list. And one of the very first ones, if not the first one, was they voted, like 10 years or 15 years ago, they voted Lake St. Clair the best bass lake in America. And at the time, I lived on Lake St. Clair. And I watched the fishing pressure increase by 1,000%, I would say, mathematically. I mean, from 10 boats on the average weekend fishing a certain section of the lake in the spring to 400 or 500 in that same.
Wow!
I'm talking bumper boats in these areas.
That's crazy.
And at the same time, for 2 or 3 years, you couldn't go 100, 200 yards in the springtime and not see a dead bass, because so many of them were dying from being handled incorrectly and gut hooked and fishing pressure. And we saw a dramatic downturn in the fishing for several years after those couple years of pressure. Now, it's still a great lake. It's not nearly as pressured as it was then, but it's still pressured. And you do see swings in fishing from a lot of places. But I, too, am hard on tournaments drawing all kinds of attention to spots or lakes or whatever. And a lot of the major tournament trails continue to go back to the same places, and it draws attention. But really, that's kind of the world we live in. You know what I mean? Like, I'm saying that as a guy that saw it at St. Clair. There's a guy right now that lives at Guntersville that's going, really? Like, you're preaching to the choir, buddy. It's been happening here for 20 years. You know, I can't even launch on my ramp down the street on the weekends. I got to get there at 4 a.m. to get a spot in the parking lot. You know, you see it all over. But more people are traveling. More people are going places to bass fish. But one thing I do say is that we saw it in St. Clair, and then the fishing took a downturn, and then everybody seemed to have left. And then the fishing got better again. And most guys now are going that are on, smallmouth destination trips. Then they all went to Traverse City for a while, and they were doing northern Michigan. Then they were going to Sturgeon Bay. Now they're all going. I haven't talked to anybody. I promise you, they're going to the St. Lawrence River.
They are. Every weekend. I can't get a spot.
You put that on TV and in those magazines, and it's like, I got to go. So that's where they're going.
My parking spot ain't available anymore.
Those dang YouTubers, Joe, they're ruining everything.
Listen, I don't give up spots, bro.
Those.
No, I don't know that you could beat it. I'm involved in the saltwater too, and like huge fishing pressure problems occur in the Florida Keys with tarpon fishing and things. And there's real known podcasts and broadcasts and things where they'll beep out stuff and they'll fuzzy the background on things. And I mean, they're doing everything, and you're not going to stop it. I don't think you can stop it, because even if you don't tell anybody, just the frequency of people traveling and going places to bass fish, they're going to find those places. So I think all you can do is continue to keep ahead of the curve. You look for new areas, but there's places on Lake St. Clair that it was like certain times of year you had to just go out there and fish with everybody because it's the best spot on the lake. It is what it is. So you either do it or you don't. And the times of year when you don't do it, then you just don't, win.
Right.
You just do the best you can.
Dang.
Yeah, then you got to have a better technique or more finesse or more power or more reaction, or that's a game within the game, right? How to fish in pressure and not spin out on your head because somebody's pressing against you. I mean, I love that. To me, I love that kind of grinder in a way. Travis thinks I'm crazy for saying it, but like on the Potomac River, there are spawning bays that are always the best spawning bays. They've been the best spawning bays for the history of the river because it's the best grass. It warms up the fastest. It's got the right bottom. It hasn't changed. And so, you know, you've got 3 different regional tournaments. You got a PA Bass Nation there. You got Maryland Bass Federation. And I'm sitting in the cove, and it's one of the more popular coves back in the day. And I took out a split shot rig. And all these PA guys, I'd catch a fish, and they'd motor towards me. But nobody was throwing a split shot rig with this little plastic that I was throwing. And, you know, at 16.5 pounds, I was top 2 in the club. And it was driving everybody crazy around me. But I love figuring out a way to trigger a bass bite with that split shot rig, you know, feeling the gravel, letting the bait dead stick there, and then that fish ticking it and picking it up. And you know, just outperforming 20 boats in the cove. I mean, just literally they could not figure out.
That's what you have to do. You have to get sneaky, but dang, it shouldn't be like that, man.
But that's part of the grind, and that's part of the challenge of bass fishing. Either running 100 miles away from everybody, right? You know, or grinding it out in a crowd, because that is the best place on the lake where the river system can be fishing.
It's definitely a unique sport.
To each his own. To each his own.
Yeah, I mean, there's always this misconception, not misconception, but there's always this underlying message too, where you know you're out there promoting the sport, or you're talking about the sport, or you're trying to, you know, the manufacturers all talk about increased participation. Right. Like you go to some company that sells fishing reels, and they go, "We need more participation." And then you talk to people that bass fish, and they're like, "We don't want any more participation."
I know, right?
You know what I mean? My buddy, who's a guide on Lake Erie, he goes, "I hate that so much." He goes, "I hope everyone quits bass fishing." So, but I think what you do see, though, in the long run, at least one thing that I've kind of noticed and taken into content with my own fishing, is that there's a lot of really good opportunities. A lot of times, places right underneath people's noses, around where they live. Places that are kind of off the grid. Yeah, the popularity of going to the St. Lawrence River or whatever it is always going to be there. But there's a lot of really good bass fisheries, and I think in the United States as a whole, that there's continuing to be more. You know, there's more environmental awareness. There's more of a catch and release practice. We've seen that big shift in the last, say, 25 years. To where there's a lot of really good, like there's people in Ohio, there's where I grew up, there's a lot of guys that only fish the lakes around the Cleveland area with just electric motor only lakes, and they have no desire to go anywhere else. They catch the heck out of fish. And it's just like, why would we, you know, go to wherever? So and then also the sport, you know, continues to progress, like bigger boats, more electronics and all that stuff. But then there's also more of a push now towards smaller stuff and kayak fishing and things. So maybe we'll start to see it trickle down, you know. And then the economy, if the economy's good, people go bass fishing, spend money on gas. When the economy's bad, they buy kayaks and fish by the house. I mean, it just depends when it's, you know, what's going on. But there's a lot of opportunities close to most everybody.
Hey,
like talk to those guys that live in the Midwest or in Canada and stuff. Like you talk to somebody like I work with Jeff Gustafson. And he's like, dude, if you even knew what was going on around my house in Canada, he goes, you would not, there's no reason to bass fish anywhere else. He goes, it's insane.
I know. I know.
So
I mean,
the Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, in a little cabin.
Yeah.
Go catch.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're supposed to go there, right? We're supposed to go there. Hey, Joe, what kind of aluminum boat do you run, man? What kind of tin boat for small waters?
I have a Ranger.
How do you
Ranger
like
17-footer.
How do you like it?
Oh, I love it. I've customized it. It's kick-ass. You know, I've done everything. It's got a great trolling motor. It's got good drafts. You know, it's just perfect for what I do. I fish a lot of places in Florida that are barely deep enough to get that into.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I can draft like about 4 or 5 inches of water in it. So it's
Nice.
For what I do, remote fishing, lousy launch ramps, bad roads.
Sure.
I don't want anything, you know, and then the climate's really tough too. You know, it's rains and you don't want to take care of a boat with carpet.
That's
So,
great.
Right on.
Yeah, it's killer. It's Camo. I love it.
Craziness.
Nice.
So I got to ask you this. I got to know, saltwater fishing, what's your species of fish that you love to target in the salt?
You know, I fished. We fish in the Florida Keys and we fish out of Daytona Beach the most. Those 2 places, and then a little bit on the Gulf side, on the Crystal River. So those 3 areas are really different. You know, the Keys are way different.
Do you like Do you like permit? Do you like bonefish? Do you like tarpon?
No. I'm not a.
None of that. No flats.
That's what's funny is when it comes
Yellowtail
Man,
snapper.
dude, what?
Yeah.
That's what I do, man.
When I saltwater fish, most of the fish we catch are target and go home. I don't bonefish. I don't tarpon fish. I don't permit fish. I don't sailfish fish. I don't marlin fish.
Crazy.
I grouper fish, snapper fish, flounder fish.
Dang,
You're fishing to eat.
That's what we.
You're
dude,
fishing
I
to
love
eat.
it. That's what I
We
would
fish
do.
to eat,
I love
for
it.
sure.
Dude, I mean, you have never gone on a flats boat and tried to catch the slam.
No,
Never?
no desire.
Joe, you got to try it, man. No desire.
I don't even have a desire to do that.
We catch big snook and sailfish and stuff and put them back and catch and release fish for snook and stuff. And I've caught permit and tarpon and everything, but it's
Yellowtails and mahi, bro.
You want to eat them. You want to eat them. You guys are meat
eating,
eaters, man. You got Crow-Mag. Let that Cro-Magnon man out and eat that thing.
That's why I do it. Absolutely. And that was another thing, too, is, when I lived on the Great Lakes, a big part of that fishery was that walleye and perch and the charter captains and the, cleaning fish and all that stuff. So that was a big part of my lifestyle and always has been with fishing. It's always been more than just bass fishing with me.
Right.
Was it your dad? Did you say your dad was a charter or someone?
Yeah, my dad had a charter boat on Lake Erie in the 80s.
Was he
walleye?
Walleye. Okay.
Yeah, that was the way.
What was the name of his boat?
At one time, Lake Erie, the Western Basin of Lake Erie, had over 1,000 charter boats in the early 80s. It was the walleye captain.
Holy crap.
How many Erie Dearies have you seen growing up?
Lots. Like the big picture, the one framed on the wall in the office or whatever. Yeah, that was the deal. Spinner fishing.
Dang.
What was the name of his boat?
The Eye Slayer.
The Eye Slayer. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yep.
Nice. Eyeballs, man. The eyeballs.
Good stuff. Listen, Joe, I really
Cool.
appreciate you coming on tonight. You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks.
We had a pretty good crowd tonight. Of course, we'll get a bunch of views later this week.
Cool.
Awesome. Man, you guys are there's a handful of industry influencers that have been around, and you're definitely one of them. So we certainly appreciate you coming on.
It's always been a thing, and I've always had, that kind of mentality that I've been so consumed by bass fishing, for my whole life, and I've always wanted to be involved in it, and I've tried to see a lot of different sides in it, and just that Great Lakes deal was such a neat thing, but I'm just happy that so many people are involved in it. Like I mentioned, last week I did a college event. It's really cool to see so many young people involved in it, because it was one thing that definitely kept me from, just derailing as a kid. I mean, it was a super drive, and I think that to have that in anybody's life, kids or whatever, to have that drive towards bass fishing is just irreplaceable. But it's more than the ego thing. It's more than tournaments and everything. It's just being on the water. It's just super, super cool. So I love talking about it. I could talk about it forever, but it's been great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
That's awesome, man. Great to meet you, Joe.
Nice to meet you. Nice working with you.
Cool.
Thank you, man. Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, Joe. Have a good night. Thank you, and you're welcome back anytime.
I appreciate it.
Joe
Thanks.
Balog, man.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one, man. Tight line.
Well, that was good.
Very
cool.
good.
Dang,
enjoyed
I could
that.
talk to him for hours, dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, dude.
He's when Frank was on our show last winter,
Yeah.
or Steve Clapper on the podcast, those guys, it's pretty cool. That's why I mentioned somebody needs to be I don't know, filming this or saving this information. You know what I mean?
Right.
We take this now for granted, okay? But 30, 40 years from now, dude, nobody's gonna know who invented live side scan or added a 60-inch shaft on their trolling motor. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Sealed it up. It's crazy.
I just think
Crazy
it's
cool.
important.
No,
I think
it
it's
is for sure.
I agree.
good show. What's
Show,
next?
man. Dynamite show.
Eric, what are you doing? Where are you again?
I'm in Nag's Head, man.
Oh, your fourth house in Nags Head. Okay, I got it.
No.
Well, I don't know. You got 18 houses. I don't know which house you're on.
Shut up, man. I don't. I'm just in Nag's Head, man.
I'll be in Deep Creek this weekend. And I got to go pick the Bojangles, so I'll swing by my Oceanside mansion for the weekend.
Oh, no, not like that. No, just a small little beach shack, man.
I hear
That's
you.
all.
So, Travis, what's the plan for next week? You got the next couple shows planned out? Do we need to get
No,
on top of that?
Alex, I don't. If I had an intern, I might.
Okay. Here we go.
Let me pull up my calendar real quick.
Pull up my calendar real quick.
I think the 11th, I'm going to do a Patreon. The 4th, next week, we're going to have a special guest.
Salzman? Hadn't had him on in a while. Jimmy Big Time. People are asking for Jimmy. Dude,
Jimmy
he's fishing
Big
the
Time,
Bass
like,
Pro Tour now. He's big time.
I know. BTC.
Always need
Yeah,
BTC
he's got
on
something
the
special
show.
to share.
He was in the comments tonight.
BTC was.
He was.
For sure.
He was.
That's awesome, man. He's got
Speaking
some
of
special sauce that he
BTC, Bass
needs to
U
share.
tomorrow night. Jody
What's on
Queen
Bass
from the
U?
kayak world. Got Jody
Who?
Queen on tomorrow night. It's going to be a good one. Finally getting into some kayak talk. I'm interested to see what the man has to say. I know he's one of the more prominent kayak anglers out there, so I think it'll be a pretty good one.
Within 5 years, I will also have the most legit kayak out there. Guaranteed.
Nice.
I'm going to get into it.
Yeah.
You gonna get the one with the trolling motor in it, so you don't have
Everything.
to
I'm
fight
going to
the
have
current
it
with your
all.
feet?
18 live scopes, whatever. I'm getting it.
Oh yeah, you.
I
Riz
heard they make a
posted
version that you
picture
power
of it
with
today.
roll blades, man.
You what?
He froze up.
Kayak. There's a kayak out there that you power and you move with roller blades. Yeah.
With rollerblades. Listen, guys, so I wanted to share this. I teased it a little bit on my Instagram. I got to share a couple clips. It was hilarious. Will and I were fishing. Let me set the stage, and I'll share the video because Will was taking some videos. I went up, fished with Will yesterday, and the goal was to go dominate this online tournament and catch some smallmouth. But Will checked out an area that was loaded with Atlantic salmon, not Chinook, not kings, not the nasty ones you don't want to eat. Atlantic salmon, big silver salmon, right? He's like, there's schools everywhere. It's on. I'm like, so the first thing in the morning we're launching.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I got a topwater spot for smallmouth. You want to go try it? I'm like, no, I want to go catch these salmon, dude. Screw this. So but then I'm like, oh shit, I got that new Monster Bass Mad Popper. I got to try it. So we went and did that, and I caught a couple fish. I'm like, Will, I want to go catch some salmon now. So we head up to the area. Way too much current flowing through there, dude. I could not get my bass boat close enough without worrying about getting, destroyed on rocks.
Safety first.
Sucks. Yeah.
So I eventually beached it and walked way up on the dam, and sure enough, they were there. We just couldn't get to them. So as we're coming back out, we see a salmon jump out of nowhere. I'm like, we'll drop the live scope down. Let's see what's up. They're everywhere, dude. Everywhere. So now we're literally
That's crazy.
throwing all this, and I'm not an expert when it comes to salmon fishing, but I will be. But I saw like Eric was it Hadawa from Wisconsin, in fisherman stuff, Al Linder and stuff, throwing blade baits or spoons or whatever. And so we look up YouTube videos in the boat on how to catch salmon, before they're spawning. And Will's got like, oh, you need this spoon with chartreuse. You got any chartreuse? I go, no. And then he's asking for a marker. I had one. I just didn't tell him. I'm like, no, I ain't got no bag. Don't fucking worry about that. So finally, I tie on the spoon, and I see him. I drop down, and boom, I get it, and the fight's on. I'm going to play the video. It was a 2-hour fight. I fought this fish for 2 hours.
Crazy.
Never done that in my life. And thinking back, a normal person be like, something isn't right here. This isn't the ocean. This isn't a shark. Like, what's up, dude? You know what I mean? I told Will a half hour into it. I'm like, I'm done, Will. We're wasting time here. Will's like, oh, that might be a world record salmon. Kept saying, world record salmon on that line. Get him in. At one point, I had him up to 15 feet. Then he goes back down to 40. We went on this side of the river, that side of the river. Literally, dude. Boats pass by to go fishing.
That's so crazy.
They get done fishing. They come back through, and they still see me fighting a fish.
They had their limit of Atlantic salmon. You're still fighting that one.
Dude.
Did you get bored? That's a long time.
Heck?
2 hours, yeah. It was
That's so
pretty
crazy.
irritating because Will kept encouraging me not to do anything stupid. And so I did.
Like really get down and dirty.
I was quick with the bait to try. So I grabbed a 7.6 Legend Extreme, 8-pound Cortland braid to an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. And I tied on a big spoon, but the swivel on the spoon, it was a circle, one that was permanently attached.
Like a split ring.
Split ring, but it's very thick. Okay. So I tie 8-pound fluorocarbon to a very thick piece of metal. It didn't feel right. And so I knew I had to be really careful with this fish, but damn, dude, that fish took me for
Let's see it, man. Let's see it.
Let's do it. Now there's some swear words I think so if you have children right now or anything, you might want to tell them to leave. And I think I took most of the cuss words out. Let me see if I can find it here. Bear with me. Talk amongst yourselves while I'm looking.
For sure. Hey, don't forget to share the audio too, Travis. I've definitely never done that before.
Oh.
Where is it?
I still can't believe 2 hours.
Starting to really upset me. How
Got
long?
audio, but no video.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
I got it. Was your reel getting hot or anything from like the drag screaming?
No, just my hand, dude.
Great question.
Oh yeah.
The reel was fine. The thing wasn't ripping line out.
Okay.
It was just
kind of dogging you.
God, it was
hugging the bottom.
Worst day of my life. All right, here we go.
Worst day of my life. I love it.
How do you it's share tab audio? Okay. Let me know if you can hear it. Ready? It's starting to really upset me.
Go.
How long have we been fighting them? An hour and a half?
Right now we are at an hour and 40 minutes.
This is ridiculous. I'm about ready to sleep. You know what I mean? I ain't saying it again.
Travis was having a rack. I said, as soon as this cloud will go by, we'll get a shot at him. We'll see him.
Oh, I go to Will. I go, well, what's the freaking forecast next week? Because that's, whatever.
I still be out.
You and me there.
Is he coming up, Travis?
No, he hasn't been coming up. He came up 15 feet. Was the closest we get to the surface. That was an hour ago.
Oh, Travis, you said take me salmon fishing, so let's go salmon fishing. I didn't think it'd be 2 hours of salmon fishing.
Rupert can get the boat faster than a second. I mean, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
coming up. He's coming up.
I lost an online tournament, which I never lose because of this fish.
Boosh just said.
I'm gonna give a shit what time you think it is. What a prick salmon, dude. I got some smoked salmon right now. I'm gonna start eating that bitch. I'm gonna start eating his brothers, because I don't give a shit this one. We got Cortland Master Braid. What is it called? Pound Flora, Cortland Master Braid. I don't know how this setup lasted this long. That's some good line. I'm starting to play him a little more aggressive here. I got a lot more pressure on than I've ever done. He doesn't seem to really fuck does he? We got about 15 minutes to go, folks. And we're going to be at 2 hours. We're done with this thing.
I'm done with this thing.
Dude.
Travis asked me to take him salmon fishing, so I did.
It's a harmless
The hands are
thing.
cramping out. Here he is. He's at 10 feet. Where is he? Oh, look at him. It's the sturgeon, why? Holy pissed. We got a sturgeon. And he's snagged in the tail. Oh. Oh my God. You gotta be freaking. What the f? I just wasted 2 hours of life on this sturgeon. Sturgeon.
Somebody call a sturgeon, please.
You already thought we worked on these salmon for an hour, trying all these different fucking worms and jigs and spoons and flukes. And I'm like, oh, I finally get a bite. It's a fucking sturgeon after 15 hours.
What in the hell? It's so
Dude.
crazy.
That was
Yes.
painful just watching that stupid clip.
It's funny how you kept trying to break the line, but it wouldn't break, and the track would just be.
After
Oh,
I saw
you
the
get your
surgeon.
Spoon
Pop
back at
that.
least.
No, I popped
You
that
just
bitch
popped
off.
it.
Because he went back down to 40 feet, dude. After he came up just now at that clip, he went back down.
Oh my God.
And I'm like,
That's
Will,
crazy.
we wasted so much time. You know, now we know what it is. Let's move on with our lives and never talk about this again, you know? Like, and then, of course, he brought it up all the rest of the day.
You gotta admit it was worth it, though. Wouldn't you be curious for the rest of your life what it was if you broke it off like an hour and a half into it? You would have been swearing
That's
you had
why
the
we
Loch Ness
played it.
Monster
That's
hooked
why
or
we
something.
fought it. Yes. Yes.
I figured. Yeah, it's a crazy day. So,
That's
are there a
too
lot
funny,
of sturgeon up there? Is that kind of rare to see that?
There's a
or-
lot of sturgeon there,
Okay.
yes, but there's a lot more salmon right now. So
Sure.
I'm telling you, I'm digging
What
the
are the
salmon, guys.
chances, man, that you tail hook a sturgeon?
On my first drop with a new spoon, that was going to be like, this is the one. Eric,
Yeah.
there was so many salmon on that live scope, it'd blow your mind.
That's crazy. Well, you caught him on a crankbait. That's even crazier to me. That's so
Today
cool.
I did. That's not crazy. That's standard. They bite that. It's fun, man. You love it. in a bass boat. Like
Cranking.
It's so cool.
Yeah. I mean,
I'd rather go do that tomorrow than go
dream.
to see smallmouth, but
sure.
Gotta pay the
too.
bills.
maybe I will tomorrow afternoon.
There you go.
There you go.
Was that before or after you hit the trolling motor on the rock pile?
So the trolling motor on the rock pile happened at the end of the day, and I was like, shit, I have a guide trip. I have guide trips all week. What am I going to do? This thing comes popping out of the water. You know, I didn't think I wrecked it. I just thought the pin on this Lawrence Go sometimes will switch, and it won't catch. So your trolling motor comes out of the water every time. So I'm like, well, I can't do it here because it's I don't want to give up the area I'm fishing. The water's too black, right? So I'm like, if you guys know the area, you'll catch it right away. So I'm like, I gotta go to a ramp where you have to jump in the water to fix this problem, because you have to take the trolling motor off of the bracket and do it in the water. I can't do it on the trailer because there's not enough room. It'll hit the trailer. Yeah. And so I had to take it to a new launch that I felt comfortable with, because I had to jump in up to my waist. And then I realized it's not the pin, it's actually bent. And so yeah, I got a ratchet strap and I can strap it in to keep the trolling motor in place, but I called Lawrence, they're going to send me a new whole deal, but it's my fault, dude. I hit that rock at a pretty high speed. You know what I mean? Like, it stopped the boat immediately. And I thought the shaft should have broken in half. Like,
oh, dang.
I immediately knew I was probably not going to have a working trolling motor in 2 seconds here, but it still worked. It just, yeah, whatever.
I got you. Have you seen or heard anything about PowerPole's trolling motor? I saw a video where someone was driving down the highway and someone had a PowerPole trolling motor on their boat. You got a pretty good look at it. I don't know if it was a prototype or
probably there's a bunch out there. My theory is they don't have the supply, you know, to mass produce these just yet.
Yeah, that
they're holding back.
Sure.
I mean, I probably would have heard about it, you know.
Sure.
Yep.
Looked like, I mean, interesting trolling motor. It's kind of like a mix between the Minn Kota one, the Tarova, I think.
I'm definitely, because everything I've owned a PowerPole has done me well.
Yeah.
And guys, listen, this is my second year with the Charge. I'm telling you, if you fish a lot, the Charge is the only way to go. This isn't a sales pitch. It's legit peace of mind that I can't speak highly enough about.
Very true, man. Scooter's got one on his new Triton, and it's the bomb.
Okay,
dude. It's the bomb.
As soon as PowerPole comes out with their trolling motor, I have no problem running it.
You're gonna run it and try it?
Absolutely.
Nice.
They got that great customer service too, man.
For sure.
That's the more important.
Yeah. It is. It is. You know what surprised me too is Lawrence was very good with their support when it comes to the Ghost trolling motor, because I've had minor issues here and there, and they're, although it's back ordered, right? The part that they want to send me,
sure.
As soon as it comes in, they're going to send me.
Right on. Well, yeah. Before we wrap up here, Kuda had a question for the both of you. He wants an update on the Legendary Lakes tour. Were you able to talk last week? Give some proposals? How'd that?
Yeah, we Tuesday night at 7. I called him. He never answered.
He was because you were supposed to call me Tuesday afternoon, and you never posted
the movie.
So tell me what happened Tuesday afternoon when you had it in your calendar and you were supposed to call me.
I got busy.
You said it on the live show that it was in your calendar Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, but I don't want to be held responsible over something I say in the live show as a important appointment.
Whoa, what?
Nothing.
And so you call me when I'm watching a movie with my wife?
Dude,
what am I just going to pick up the phone anytime you call? I don't think so.
Okay. If you're not watching it with your wife, you're watching it by yourself. If you're not by yourself, I don't know what you're doing. But you probably watch 3 movies a night, Eric. Something's wrong. A grown man should not watch 3 movies a night.
A grown man watch 3 movies a night.
Hey, listen, we got some big things coming up. We're doing a little We're doing a little collab with Monster Bass 3 weeks from now. A bunch of YouTubers, myself, Eric. We're going to be hanging out on the St. Lawrence River with Will, smashing. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Me too, man. That's going to be dynamite.
For sure.
Stoked.
But we definitely have some good things moving forward. So
For sure.
Heck yeah.
cool. All right, what else you got? Anything? We done?
You wanted to limit it to an hour and a half, man. We're at 2:09.
Perfect.
I'm running on about 12 hours of sleep in 4
We need to
days.
get some rest.
So,
Alex, you need
But
to
that's
work on my
pretty
website, and I need to drink a few more White Claws and eat some ice cream. You know what I'm saying?
a grown man shouldn't be drinking 8 White Claws a night and a gallon of ice cream.
I didn't eat it all today, bro.
Oh, you didn't eat? Oh, there you go.
Off my supplements, bro.
All right, liquid diet. You're good.
Catching them salmon.
That's right. That's awesome. I can't wait to
I gotta
see that.
get
I
you
can't
in
wait to do that.
You would love
I
it.
can't wait to do it. Are you kidding me? Cranking for
Well,
salmon?
wait, you gotta come up Saturday. I got my
Before the-
Bojangles scooter. Huh? Championship. We can win a boat. Oh, like the last one where you took 8th, or the last one you took 14th, or the last one the week before where you took 6th, or the other one where you bumped off on some barnacles on a frog. What are we talking about, bro? Nobody in their right mind took 18 championships in a year.
18 championships. You're old. Just keep going, man. I can't even say anything. I like it.
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
funny.
before we go, let's answer someone's question here. Joe Merker. I don't know that name. Must be brand new, maybe.
Awesome.
Any tips for a co-angler on the Potomac for the first time? Eric?
When are you fishing, Joe? Coming up?
Probably.
I'm guessing. Is he on Instagram? Have him DM me, man. I'll throw a few tips out for him that only he'll know. I got some advice for you for sure.
He said mid-October.
Yeah, hit me up at Eric at Epic Eric Official on Instagram, man. I'll give you some tips.
There you go.
Joe, it's already on the screen. Just
there it is. We'll keep those just between me and you.
Ooh.
Since you're a new smallmouth
insider info
viewer. That's right.
Trevor goes, how do you like that braid this year? I love it. I was talking to Eric on the phone last week about it.
Yep.
If you guys are serious, like Cortland braid is the best braid I've ever used. And they don't pay me, okay, right?
Right.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. John Henning goes, oh, sure, you ran for him. John, you don't need no help, man.
John, I got you, man.
Oh, man.
I got you, John.
John don't need no help.
He's a stud.
Damn.
He's a stud.
Now I'm all pumped up.
That's right, man. They're gonna start eating that. They're gonna start eating that moving bait coming up here soon, man. For sure. The bait will start moving into the creeks. Nights are getting shorter, colder. It's gonna be
still
good.
out.
Finally
They're still out where they are out. They're out there all the time.
Yeah.
I did catch a smallmouth on a wiggle wart today, though.
That's awesome, man.
Next to them
We know
salmon.
they eat cranks up there. We know they eat cranks up there. Dude, my squirrel. In fact, I got that squirrel bill I threw through that first time in my box.
Man. Now Will wants me to go walk around with waders somewhere.
That Excalibur, man. That's one of the first ones before the June bug. I threw it. That's the one I hand painted. Excalibur 1.5 or 100.
Hold on. JJ Outdoors goes, did you pick out a new truck for next year? Thinking about it. There's a couple things going on. Do I want to drop if I'm going to get a truck, I'm going to get a big boy truck. I'm going to get a GMC Denali 2500 HD lifted, black tires, long box.
Ooh.
Guess what? You ain't find none of them out there on the market.
Really?
So No, dude, it's terrible. If you're in the market to shop for vehicles right now, this is nuts.
Why not just a Toyota that lasts you and be super
Well,
reliable?
Toyota came out with a brand new one, and that's the same deal.
Right.
So I might keep my truck another year, although the check engine light came on again last week.
What does it mean? Nothing.
It's just a sensor. It's just a sensor to tell me I have low oil pressure. They want to charge me $800 probably to fix it. So whatever. Same thing that happened last year.
That's nuts.
That is nuts.
Mm-hmm.
That new Tundra looked pretty nice, though. I'll give it that.
What's that?
Yeah, man.
I thought that new Tundra looked pretty nice. It was a lot better looking than the old one, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look into it. I called Toyota. I called Toyota.
Reliable.
I called the dealership by my house, and they said, you got to set an appointment to come in to talk about the new truck. You have to, well, there's a couple things.
Give us $1,000 as a deposit just to talk about it.
They don't know the build date on it. I have to wear a fucking mask and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm out, Toyota. Go through yourself. I'll go find a truck somewhere else if this is what I got to go through. The mask is the part that threw me off. I mean, it's 2021. I think all of us are smart enough to realize we've been duped, okay? This has all been fucking fake, and we've been duped.
Interesting.
Okay? Go wear your goddamn. I saw a guy, Eric. I saw a guy on the bank. I didn't have time to get my phone because it was raining. He had a fucking mask on while he was salmon fishing from the bank. I swear to God.
Why do you even care? I saw a girl with purple hair. Why does she have purple hair?
Oh, dude,
I saw
Eric,
a guy wearing a tie on the bank salmon fishing. Why was he wearing a tie? What? Who cares? Why does it bother you, man? Think about things that are important, that matter.
The guy fishing with a fucking mask was a wake-up call to this world and how the propaganda and how the news and how the media has forced people to be even dumber than they really are because they're already dumb.
You sound really smart right now. People are dumber than they really are. Interesting.
Eric, just wait. Cole's going to grow up and be like the biggest Democrat you ever saw, and Travis is going to take him out of the house.
There's no question about it, man. As much as he'll try, he's going to be a Democrat. You're going to swing him the other way, bro. It's called psychological reactance.
First of all, Eric, it's
the
not,
more you push him
both
away.
sides are fucked up, okay?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
The world's fucked up. Welcome to it. Now you got to figure out how to exist in it. But
it's
hey,
a show. I'm leaning your way, Eric. Eric, we haven't talked much, but our next road trip, I think we're going to come full circle, bro.
What?
Yeah.
Is this in the pit?
I thought about you a lot. I thought about you a lot in our conversations, and
what do you mean?
I mean, I think there's a lot that you're not open to. That's real.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot that I need to understand your point of view, and so I'm saying it's full circle, bro.
There we go.
Whoa.
Sounds about right.
Well, interesting. No, man. I mean, I listen to your podcast, man. I try to keep an open mind. I really do.
There you go.
But at the end of the day, man, you have one life to live.
That's right.
And I want to put my energy and attention into things that matter to me.
That's right.
And it doesn't have a lot to do with others and what they choose, their political preferences, their taste in food, wine, masks, clothing, hairstyle, color, orientations for religion, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the people that I surround myself with, and my family, and my business, and my passion for fishing, man.
Yes,
trying to stay healthy, because that's without your health, you don't have much, man. Right? My little grandmother from Italy used to tell me that, man. She said, you got to be like a tree, man. You got to be flexible. Those branches got to kind of wave with the wind, man. Because if you get too stiff, Travis, you break. You break.
Yes.
It was good advice.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Speaking of last week's live, remember when SmallmouthCrush Jr. came in at like 9 o'clock at night? We had that whole fiasco.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Still going on. Still going on.
Did you?
Man.
You have to. At this point, I think you got to sage the whole house. Will said keep it open, and then you got to give Cole a dream catcher. And so you let him know that anything that's bad, it'll be caught like a bad dream in the dream catcher and cast it out the window, man. So sage the house,
All I
get the man
know
a
is-
dream catcher.
Yeah.
And then you're supposed to leave a plate of food out for the lost soul that followed you home. Because you want
I don't
to
think
send
he
them
followed
away.
him home. I think whatever entity was in his room that night stayed there. He's still. It didn't follow him home, but it shook him up, dude.
Okay.
And I knew
Will
this was.
says you got to get him a dream catcher then.
I will.
Whatever works.
What the fuck are you doing renting a haunted house then? Jesus Christ, man.
I didn't know.
In
And there's a
1888,
website. There's a
Captain's house on
website.
fucking Lake Ontario is bound to be fucking haunted. I'm just saying, how many people do you think died in that house?
Could have
A
been the
few.
land it's on. Could have been the land it's on. I don't know.
Okay, here's what I'm saying. I guess you don't have much choice if you're up there, right? Everything's from the 1800s.
No, you can. There's a website that allows you to look up the history of houses.
Right.
It's a
So you can rent a ghost
No,
tree house.
no.
would
You
be
can, yeah,
preferable.
I mean, potentially. It's still the land too. It's not. Someone doesn't have to die in it. You could have someone that just has a huge. Most of those people are not.
Yeah, it's like poltergeist, man. They
Yeah, but
built
most of
this
the,
whole community on a burial ground, man.
Most people, when they go in the afterlife, are not going to
Upset.
come back and haunt. You know what I mean? You get
Well,
this rare occasion where this spirit doesn't know to cross over and he's stuck.
Well, you're
And-
supposed to feed him. That's what Will said. Will is schooled in this stuff. Didn't you talk to Will about this on the boat while you were fighting a sturgeon? You had 2 hours and 15 fucking minutes to work through this shit, man. He's the guy that has all the answers. He walked me through like a 3-step program. Sage that fucking house, get him a dream catcher, and feed and leave the food out for the spirit because he's still in your house.
The spirit is in my house.
How do you know? Well, he may be in fucking Cole's brain.
I can feel things a little bit more than the average person. I would know
Right.
if he's there. Okay?
That's a scary fucking movie, man. Don't watch that one. That'll wig you out. Stephen King. It's like clowns. Do you have a fear of clowns?
I have neutral on clowns.
Do you like horror movies?
I don't really watch stuff, dude. I don't know much.
Have you ever watched a horror movie? You fucking watched Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure. Have you ever watched a horror movie?
Ding Dong, You're Dead in 1989, and it freaked me out.
So that was probably it for you in horror movies? Ding Dong, You're Dead?
Yeah, it was the first time, Mom didn't want me to watch it. Dad's like, we're at the VCR, cassette.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, I'm like, I really want to watch this, man. It had a fingernail, a doorbell, like that was a picture. Yeah. And I'm like, I got it. And then the first scene was some dude hanging himself. I'm like 8, bro. And that's what I saw.
NG.
Never seen a dead body on TV.
Oh, wow.
That was it.
That freaked you out.
Watched the whole thing.
And that was the last horror movie you
I don't
watched.
think it freaked me out like Jaws did, the original Jaws movie.
That's pretty good.
So
man.
I could not walk on the floor. I thought the floor was water and there were sharks. So I had to jump from the sofa to this to that to get to my bed, bro. The shit you watch, Eric, that's what's pulling your mind, bro. Turn that shit off up there. All of it.
I separate. There's something called the willing suspension of disbelief, right? Movies make you feel things. For me, it's an escape from reality. Not, I think movies are real, therefore I believe what I see in the movies. No, just like the podcasts you watch are entertainment. Listen, the podcast you listen to the podcasts you listen to are entertainment. You think it's a show, so you are disconnected from reality, and you're just an audience member watching the world. You're a pacifist in a world around you that's a show to you. You're not engaged in life when you say, I'm sitting back and watching the show. That means you're trying to disconnect from the world because you can't handle the truth or the reality of what's in front of you. So you're just going to sit back and listen to this alternate reality and watch the show.
I'm going to sit back, catch my sandwich.
You're just an
hang out
audience
with
member.
Will, hang out with Eric,
Yeah.
talk on this podcast.
Right. Yeah, man. No, I use movies to escape the shitty reality of the world that we live in, right? The anger that you display, the anger and angst in the world right now. It's a tough place to be if you really are, if you feel, right? And you empathize with others, whatever side of the fence they're on, right? Because there's a lot of hate right now, right? There's a lot of hate. Hate. That's a strong word, right? When you say I hate this, I hate them, I hate that. Hate it's pretty deep. I mean, unless you just throw the word around like it's nothing, but to really hate something, you got to be in a pretty dark place, right? Hate fuels, I mean, you think about hate between, religions, hate between countries. It fuels people to kill one another and do really bad things to each other. It's pretty sad. So I use movies to escape from the angst in the world. So I decompress when I watch it. I go someplace else in my mind, but I take it for what it's worth. I don't watch a movie and go, oh wow, that must be how the world really works. If I'm watching Fast and Furious, I realize it's just pure entertainment. So I am watching a real show as entertainment value, right? Now, when I watch a documentary like Dark Waters, and that's something I think you care about, right? Because you are conscious about the food that you put in your family's body. You want to make sure that they're eating clean, and you try to eat clean. I mean, as much as we're on you about drinking White Claws and eating a gallon of ice cream, you by and large,
I could drink some White Claws and eat some ice cream once in a while. Yeah, go on.
I agree. No, but by and large, you really do a good job.
Probably not every night. I get it. Okay.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm saying you do a good job. I'm complimenting you, man. You taught me a lot about nutrition. I applaud you for it. I've always tried to eat clean and be good and properly nutrified. I believe in that stuff. So I'm if it's false, I'm suckered in, right? I try to educate myself and I try to read up on it ever since my college days, man. I don't feel like the food that we get is properly, doesn't have the vitamins and minerals it used to because the ground's been depleted. Hey, we can talk all day long about that stuff. It's very interesting to me. But when I watch a movie that's based on something real like Dark Waters, right, and the development of Teflon, which is in everything, and you start to read about like firemen suits, right, firefighters, right? We all love firefighters because they save lives, right? The people that go into a burning house and try to rescue somebody, their suits are coated because the industry, when a fireman wears a suit today, it has Teflon in it. And these I forget what they're called, polyfluorocarbons or something. And they're getting cancer at an alarming rate. And those suits are shedding that chemical onto their skin.
Come on, bro.
Swear to God. And it's sad.
Wow.
And so, those are the things that make me angry, right? When big business, is knowingly. No, it's not. Skip it. Skip the deep state part because that's where you'll lose me, right? That's where you'll lose me.
Because you're watching movies.
I don't like labels. I don't like labels.
Okay.
I don't like you're a Republican, so I automatically have to say, oh, I'm a Democrat or I'm an independent, and all of a sudden we're at war because I voted this way, you voted that way, and
I just don't want to ever see you on the bank fishing for salmon with a fucking face mask on. That's all I ask.
I wore my mask today, so hate on me all you want.
Oh Jesus!
See, I mean, it's okay.
You bring that shit up here, bro. It ain't happening.
I'll do it. So
I wore that shit today, he says. Alex, you
I'll
believe
wear it in front of you. In New York, I'll bring it up.
You just got to do it now, Eric.
Till next time, we'll see you
I'll
guys
wear
on
it. I'll wear it on the show.
We're two of them on the